Chapter 1195. The old man in front of him looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Go to the side and test your planet first. You can only get your own planet's coordinates. Lu Chen looked back and saw that in front of a teleportation array, there were more than a dozen people standing in line. Lu Chen also walked over and stood behind the last person in line. Lu Chen really wanted to find someone to talk to. He knew nothing about the seventh heaven. Unfortunately, these people were rather cold and did not speak to each other. They all had arrogant expressions and looked unapproachable. Why are the people here like this? I worked so hard to come to the seventh heaven, but I don't even have someone to talk to. How boring. Lu Chen muttered at the back. Suddenly, the person in front of him turned around and sized up Lu Chen. Lu Chen also sized up this person curiously. This man looked to be in his 30s. Of course, he could not tell his actual age. He was about 1.8 meters tall, half a head shorter than Lu Chen. He was slightly plump and had a neat mustache on his face. He was sizing up Lu Chen with a pair of small eyes. Among the immortal cultivators, someone who looked so wretched should be considered an anomaly. Brother, are you also an itinerant immortal? That person asked. Lu Chen shook his head. Yes. That person looked surprised. Why was this guy shaking his head and saying yes at the same time? Was that yes or no? Perhaps it was better to rely on what he said. After all, he did not look like a true immortal. You are also an itinerant immortal? Lu Chen asked. Yes. Sigh, I originally had the ability to become a true immortal. Unfortunately, I encountered a level 6 heavenly tribulation, sigh. Level 6 heavenly tribulation. Lu Chen's eyes widened. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. This guy encountered a level 6 heavenly tribulation and still sighed here. He had passed 3 level 12 heavenly tribulations and was still the king of savages. Looks like your world has no one to protect it. That fatty sighed. Otherwise, it would not be up to us itinerant immortals to protect the coordinates. Lu Chen nodded. In this regard, he should be in a similar situation as this chubby brother. However, loose immortals were easier to talk to. Those true immortals were all extremely arrogant. Brother Fatty, how many coordinates are left in your world? Lu Chen asked. Fatty looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Seeing the other party's innocent face, he thought for a moment. This guy might be a newbie, after all, he didn't care much about the coordinates. Friend, I think you didn't mean it. However, I have to remind you that in the seventh heaven, don't casually ask others about the coordinates. It will make others think that you have the intention to compete for the coordinates. Lu Chen suddenly realized and hurriedly said, Sorry, I forgot about that. Fatty nodded, You should be new to the seventh heaven, right? You'll know in the future. However, perhaps because they were in the same boat, little Fatty sighed and glanced at Lu Chen. Sigh, I don't have many coordinates left in my world. Otherwise, why would I, an itinerant immortal, come here? Didn't you see that the people in front of me are all true immortals and immortal lords? This time, I came here because my immortal master promised to help me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the confidence to come here. Hey, friend, you should be in the same situation, right? Lu Chen shook his head and said, I don't have an immortal master, and I don't intend to recognize one. Ah. You don't have an immortal master. Little Peng's eyes widened. Then if you take the coordinates, isn't it the same as giving them away for free? Lu Chen took a deep breath. Earth's last coordinates, once it fell into the hands of others, Earth would be exposed. No, according to what the fairy said, not only would it be exposed, it would also be sacrificed to the Jyotian. The original home planet of the origin god should have such a fate. No, I definitely won't let others snatch the coordinates from me. Lu Chen's eyes revealed an incomparably resolute expression. Earth was his hometown. Lu Yi, Zhu Yi, his friends, his hometown, his ancestors, his everything was there. However, Lu Chen's resolute expression, in Fatty's eyes, turned into helplessness. He shook his head. Brother, sigh, I don't know what to say either. Anyway, I wish you good luck. Lu Chen nodded. Oh right, Fatty, you mentioned the level 6 heavenly tribulation before. If a true immortal had only passed, for example, level 4 or level 5 heavenly tribulation, would their strength be inferior to yours? Little Fatty looked at Lu Chen in astonishment. Brother, why would you have such an idea? A true immortal's strength is definitely stronger than an itinerant immortal's. First of all, a true immortal's heavenly tribulation is no lower than level 5. And you have to know that a true immortal who has passed level 5 heavenly tribulation may not necessarily only pass level 5 heavenly tribulation. Secondly, after going through a complete heavenly tribulation, a true immortal's physique will be greatly improved. At the same level of heavenly tribulation, a true immortal's strength will increase through the heavenly tribulation alone, exceeding the upper limit of an itinerant immortal of the same level. So, what you said just now is completely wrong. And the biggest difference between a true immortal and an itinerant immortal is the difference in upper limit. Only when you become a true immortal can you truly open the immortal path. As for an itinerant immortal, that's already the limit. No matter how strong you are, your upper limit is there. Naturally, you can't set foot on the immortal path. In the early stages, some true immortal strength may not be as strong as an itinerant immortal, but after a little time, true immortals will definitely be stronger than itinerant immortals. This is an indisputable fact. Lu Chen frowned. No wonder true immortals were so cold. True immortals and itinerant immortals both had the word immortal in their names, but they were not the same species at all. Then, Fatty, how do true immortals compare their strength? That's hard to say. Fatty stroked his mustache. Strength is divided into two parts, actual combat ability and potential. Actual combat ability depends on the battle results of the immortal war. Potential depends on the level of the heavenly tribulation. Moreover, it also depends on each other's attributes, occupations, techniques, and restraints. All these have to be analyzed comprehensively. Lu Chen nodded. He naturally understood some of the theories of actual combat comparison and automatically skipped them. But the most important information he got from Fatty was, true immortals could open the immortal path and continuously improve, but itinerant immortals could not. Some powerful itinerant immortals could defeat weaker true immortals for a certain period of time, but only for a short period of time. Once the true immortals grew up, itinerant immortals could only be abused. The current strength of true immortals and itinerant immortals could be seen from the battle results of the immortal war. Thank you, Fatty. Lu Chen cupped his fists and said, right, Fatty, I still don't know your name. It's rare to meet someone I can talk to in the 7th layer of heaven. Maybe we will have a chance to meet again in the future. Fatty smiled slightly. I'm Yuanxing. Little brother, how should I address you? Solipsistic. Solipsistic. This. Brother, it's not that I want to humiliate you, but I'm afraid you should change your name. Below the 6th layer of heaven, I believe you have the capital to be arrogant. But at the 7th layer of heaven, I'm afraid your name alone will bring you a lot of trouble. Fatty said with concern. Lu Chen smiled slightly. I won't change it. I'll take this name. While the two were chatting, it was Fatty's turn to take the test. After Fatty's result came out, he bid farewell to Lu Chen. He took out a token and handed it to Lu Chen. Brother Du Quan, it's fate that we met. I'm Yuanxing. Currently, I belong to the 10,000 Mystic Immortal Master's residence. My Immortal Master is a forthright person with 3,000 followers. If you want to join him one day, you can bring this token to me. Although Lu Chen was not willing to accept it as his master, he did not want to refuse the other party's good intentions. He kept the token and said, "Thank you, Brother Yuanqing." Chapter 1196. After Lu Chen finished the test, he returned to the location where he received his coordinates and handed the results to the old man. The old man did not even look at Lu Chen. He placed the card into the machine beside him to identify it. Then, a scroll flew out from the bookshelf. The old man did not even look back. He directly grabbed the scroll and placed it beside the table. He lowered his head and recorded something. Celestial title. Ah! Lu Chen was stunned for a moment. Celestial title. What's your name? The old man looked at Lu Chen impatiently. Oh, solipsistic. Solipsistic. Humph, you dare to use this celestial title. You are indeed arrogant. The old man said to himself as he recorded Lu Chen's information. Level. Lu Chen blinked. Was this the second question? He had not thought of how to answer. This, is it something I casually reported? Hey, what's wrong with you? Is this something you can report casually? I'm just too lazy to check. If the information is wrong, causing others to be unable to challenge you, you will not have any immortal battle results in the future. You will also not be able to register your planet's coordinates. If anything happens to your world, it's your own problem. Lu Chen took a deep breath. It seemed like this was very important. He could not just make things up. After holding it in for a while, Lu Chen said, "Peak of the King of Savages realm." The old man put down the brush and looked like he had had enough. He put his hands on his waist and stared at Lu Chen. Friend, did you not go through the tribulation? I did. Lu Chen stammered. That's it. You went through the tribulation. You came to the 7th layer of heaven. You are standing in front of me. In the end, you are telling me that you are the king of savages. What the hell is a wild king of savages? I don't care. You are telling me that you are at the peak of the king of savages realm? Are you out of your mind? Senior, this. I am really at the peak of the king of savages realm. I really have to hand it to you. After so many years, you are the first person who can make me use my immortal chi. The peak of the king of savages. The old man was like a steam engine now. His entire body was emitting divine energy. Really, why am I angry? Is it worth it? Alright, you're the king of savages. This information is yours anyway. If anything happens in the future, it's your problem. You can't blame me. The old man seemed to have thought it through. He picked up the brush again to record the information. Heavenly tribulation level. Cough cough. Lu Chen choked for a long time. The other party seemed to be on the verge of exploding with anger. If he continued speaking, he wouldn't directly attack, right? Heavenly tribulation level. Don't tell me you're a level 9 heavenly tribulation. The old man was so angry that his mouth was dry. He picked up the teacup beside him and took a big gulp. It was better to drink some water to calm down. Lu Chen took a deep breath and let out a long sigh. There was no other way. This thing had to be registered. If he didn't tell the truth, it might have a great impact. It might even be related to the safety of Earth. Level 12 Heavenly Tribulation. With a pft, the old man spat out all the water in his mouth. Fortunately, Lu Chen activated a spiritual energy shield and blocked it. At this moment, the old man's face was about to turn green with anger. As he was angry, he actually laughed. Ha ha, I am about to die from anger. Level 12 Heavenly Tribulation. I think level 12 is too low. Why don't you say level 100? Lu Chen said very seriously. I think there's no level 100, or I might have died in the Tower of Babel. The old man's hands were trembling. This guy was actually answering him seriously. By the way, old man, I've experienced 3 heavenly tribulations. Should I also write this information? 2 of them were dual elemental heavenly tribulations. Lu Qin suddenly thought of this. If the information is inaccurate, it will affect the safety of my world, right? As the person who received the last coordinates of Earth, Lu Qin couldn't let the information be wrong. However, the old man didn't respond for a long time. He just sat there, powerless. He didn't look too good. Old man, what's wrong? Lu Qin asked hurriedly. The old man said weakly, King of Savages, level 12 heavenly tribulations, 3 times. 2 of them were dual elemental heavenly tribulations. Friend, are you here to cause trouble? Lu Qin said hurriedly, his face full of anxiety. Senior, I'm definitely not here to cause trouble. This is very important to me, so I don't dare to hide anything. If you're not here to cause trouble, then why are you joking with me? The old man suddenly stood up and glared at Lu Qin. Tell me, has there ever been a level 12 heavenly tribulation since ancient times? Fine, even if there is, has anyone experienced 3 heavenly tribulations? Fine, even if there is. Then has anyone experienced 3 heavenly tribulations and ended up as some king of savages? You tell me. Lu Qin realized that the old man was about to explode. He said softly, I really don't know about that. I've only been in Zhoutian for more than 10 years. How would I know about the past? The old man felt all the blood in his body flow backwards. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood. More than 10 years. 7 heavens in more than 10 years. Kid, if I hadn't become an itinerant immortal, I would have torn you apart 108 times in the past. The old man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Fine, you want to play with me? I'll play with you to the end. With that, the old man turned around and walked to a wooden box behind him. He injected spiritual energy into it and opened it. There was a stone that looked like a shadow stone in the box. Tai possession. The old man immediately released a shocking amount of spiritual energy. It seemed that activating the stone required a large amount of spiritual energy. The old man turned around and said to Lu Qin, You, come in. Lu Qin blinked and entered the counter. Inject spiritual energy. Lu Qin did as he was told. Soon, Lu Qin's information popped up. Solipsistic, human race, current level, peak 9-star Savage King Realm, Heavenly Tribulation level, for tribulations, first level, 12th level Fire Super Heavenly Tribulation, successfully transcended. Second level, 12th level Ice and Lightning Super Heavenly Tribulation, successfully transcended. Third level, 12th level Fire and Lightning Super Heavenly Tribulation, successfully transcended. Fourth level, 12th level Ice, Fire, Wind, Lightning, and Earth Super Heavenly Tribulation, data unknown. Lu Qin hurriedly said, Senior, I actually didn't transcend the 4th Heavenly Tribulation. I ran away. I didn't know about this. I'm sorry. When Lu Qin turned around, the old man's eyes were wide open and his mouth was wide open. He looked shocked and petrified on the spot. What this guy said was all true. Senior. Lu Qin said anxiously. The old man only came back to his senses when the message disappeared. I'm fine. The old man returned to his seat in a daze. Get out. Lu Qin went to the counter and obediently filled in the information. The old man drank several cups of tea in a row before he recovered. The way he looked at Lu Qin changed. His gaze fell on Lu Qin's badge. Sir, can you disperse the spiritual energy fog? Lu Qin raised his hand and the badge appeared normal. 9-star Savage King Realm. The old man nodded. Sir, you still have to hide your level in the future. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will cause a commotion in the 7th heaven. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. Lu Qin cupped his fists. The old man sighed. I offended you just now. Please forgive me. Senior, don't take it to heart. I just want to get the coordinates as soon as possible. Lu Chen said in a deep voice. Chapter 1197. The old man handed the scroll to Lu Chen, not forgetting to instruct Lu Chen, I've seen Earth's situation. This is the last coordinate, Lu Chen nodded. That's why I must get it. The old man nodded slightly, as if he wanted to say something. Senior, is there anything else you need to instruct me? Lu Chen asked. Sir, I am really curious. Why did you pass 3 heavenly tribulations but not become an immortal? The old man voiced his doubts. Lu Chen shrugged. Maybe there's a problem with the heaven-reaching tower. Lu Chen did not intend to tell the truth. After all, he had met this person by chance. Then, Sir's attributes, the 7th heaven seems to be unable to open the attributes panel. Lu Chen did not lie this time. That's natural. After all, the 7th heaven does not quantify attributes. The old man nodded and said, generally speaking, heavenly tribulations are the great tribulation of immortal cultivation, but at the same time, it also builds the body. Although Sir has not become an immortal, you have successfully passed 3 heavenly tribulations. I'm really curious about Sir's physique. Has some unknown change happened? I'm not sure now. Lu Chen shook his head and said, however, you said that after the heavenly tribulations, your strength increased greatly, but I don't think I felt it. That's the reward for becoming an immortal. True immortals and loose immortals get it. You didn't become an immortal, so naturally, you don't get this reward, the old man said. And without becoming an immortal, Sir's path to immortality cannot be opened. However, the heavenly tribulations increase the upper limit of one's strength at the same time. If Sir is doubtful, you might as well continue to increase your strength on the basis of being a 9-star human king. Lu Chen frowned. Continue to increase his strength? This was not something that could be figured out in a short period of time. It seemed that he had to wait until his strength increased in the future. Sir, Earth still has 6 years of protection, but after 6 years, many people will definitely know that only the last coordinate of Earth has not been exposed, and Sir's level and immortal mansion will be made public. They will be able to find Sir's information by searching, the old man said. At that time, I'm afraid that Sir will face many challenges. Lu Chen nodded. I know. Senior, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Sir. Take care, mister. The old man stood up to send him off. Watching Lu Chen carefully descend the stairway, the old man's gaze followed him closely. Since ancient times, there has never been anyone who has passed through the 12th level of heavenly tribulation 3 times. Even if he hasn't become an immortal, his potential is definitely not worse than that of a 9 tribulation true immortal. For a mortal to enter the immortal realm, I'm afraid this is a true heaven-defying person. Lu Chen finally managed to descend so many steps, only to discover that he was surrounded by a vast mountain range. From time to time, there would be people teleporting in and out of the mountain peak. He was the only one standing there in a daze. Lu Chen shook his head. The 7th layer of heaven was too advanced, and since he did not have a teleportation talisman, he could only walk down the mountain. It's not easy to come to the 7th heaven, but in the end, I still have to be a savage. Lu Chen complained as he went down the mountain. When he was halfway down the mountain, Lu Chen suddenly realized that someone was chasing after him. He stopped and looked at the person in surprise. There were more than 10 people, and they were still shouting at him as they ran, "Solipsistic, please wait." Not long after, these people arrived in front of Lu Chen. One of the old men cupped his fists and said to Lu Chen, "Brother Du Quang, we are Earth's loose immortals." Lu Chen's eyes widened, "You are from Earth?" "Yes. Brother Du Quang, after we knew that you had challenged the 6th layer of Heaven Tong Tian Tower, we expected that you would come here to collect the coordinates of Earth soon, so we specially waited here." Lu Chen frowned. Which country is the second strongest in terms of overall national strength on Earth? America. America used to be number one, but 20 years ago, Wuxia surpassed America. Oh, you even know such a tricky question. It should be Earth. Lu Chen relaxed his vigilance. Brother Du Quang, you still don't believe us? Do you know about Earth's Guide project? Lu Chen's eyes widened. Of course he knew about this project. If not for this project, Earth's players would still be stuck at the second layer of heaven. Then it was us who planned it. It's you guys. Yes. It's not convenient to talk here. Come with us. The old man looked around vigilantly and said softly. Okay. The old man took out a teleportation talisman and handed it to Lu Chen. The group quickly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, Lu Chen and the others arrived in front of a cave in the wilderness. There was a plaque on the cave with the words, 9-Star Paradise written on it. Lu Chen followed the group into the cave. Brother Du Quang, this is our base in the 7th layer of heaven. This cave is a bit shabby and cannot be compared to other true immortals' paradise. Please don't take offense. Lu Chen frowned. When did you guys come to Jiutian? A long time ago. Let's talk about this inside. What Lu Chen did not expect was that such a shabby cave would be filled with spiritual energy. It was comparable to a low-level heaven domain's spiritual vein. Inside the 9-Star Paradise, light shone in. The light was comfortable and the temperature was just right. There were stone beds and stone tables inside. There was also a natural spring in the cave. Brother Du Quang, please take a seat. The old man took out a teapot and poured tea for Lu Chen. His movements were meticulous. This tea, does it add spiritual energy? It doesn't add spiritual energy. However, it can make one feel refreshed. The old man smiled. Lu Chen took a sip. It was indeed sweet. However, since it could not add spiritual energy, Lu Chen did not have much interest. He went straight to the point. Now that we have returned to the 9-Star Paradise, let's talk about your situation. Everyone looked at each other. It seemed that they would let the old man do the talking. It's a long story. If you want to talk about it, let's start with the 9-Star Paradise. The old man said. The 9-Star Paradise was bought by a dozen loose immortals over the years. Therefore, it was not on the same level as a true immortal's paradise. However, these loose immortals also needed a fixed place to cultivate. They had no choice but to buy this place. It can be said that the 9-Star Paradise is the only immortal abode for earthlings in Jiutian. Lu Chen listened carefully. 50 years ago, Jiutian was open to Earth in another form. The old man suddenly said, it has only been open for a dozen years. In these dozen years, millions of people have entered Jiutian. Another form? What is it? Lu Chen asked. Transmission array. A group of the most outstanding people, including their physical fitness, mental fitness, age and other suitable people from all over the world, were sent to Jiutian. We all went through a strict selection process before we were qualified to enter Jiutian. This. Lu Chen's eyes widened. I haven't heard any news about this. It's normal. Because the Jiutian gave us an order. Once the news is leaked, the person who leaked the news, along with his or her family, will be obliterated immediately. The Jiutian knows everything. You should know this very well. Even if there were a few people who leaked the news, they would definitely be dead. Lu Chen frowned. It turned out that the Jiutian had opened once a long time ago. Then it was very likely that his parents were chosen at that time. Chapter 1198. Although Lu Chen had many questions in his heart, he did not ask them at this time. This was because every piece of information that the old man said was something that Lu Chen wanted to know. The opening of the Jotian at that time was completely different from the opening of the Jotian server. The old man continued, from the beginning, we were told that the Jotian was not just a game. This was the real cultivation of immortality. At the same time, we were also told that the coordinates of Earth had entered the list of planets that had been requisitioned. In other words, if we could not enter the seventh heaven in these 50 years, then Earth would be sacrificed to the Jotian. The reason why the Jotian chose us was to give us a chance to protect Earth. Perhaps the Jotian felt that the time given to Earth was too short, so we received a lot of support, such as the Spirit Extraction Scroll, Immortal Pills, and so on. Our strength improved by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. However, our foundation was too weak, and the time was too short. Even with the support of the first batch of players, none of us reached the peak of the Human King in 50 years. Another middle-aged man said, at that time, we saw that Earth was officially opened to the Jotian server. Your growth rate was too slow, and we knew that if we did not transcend the tribulation, Earth's coordinates would be completely exposed. Therefore, we gathered all the resources in the hands of the players on Earth and concentrated them in the hands of 20 people. We knew that we could not transcend the tribulation, but we forcibly transcended the tribulation. Forcibly transcended the tribulation? Lu Chen asked in surprise. Yes. We only raised our spiritual power to the peak of the Human King, but our 3 dimensions were far from enough, so we took the Tribulation Transcendence Pill and forcibly transcended the tribulation. In the end, the result was still considered fortunate. We entered the 7th heaven as individual immortals. Lu Chen frowned. He seemed to have thought of something and was a little emotional. So you received 19 coordinates. But, didn't you say that 20 people were going to transcend the tribulation? What about the other person? There was another person. He was a legend, the strongest human on Earth. When he transcended the tribulation, he did not take the Tribulation Transcendence Pill. He became a true immortal. Who was it? Lu Chen asked. Your father, Immortal Master Lu Yuan. Lu Chen felt as if he had been electrocuted. His father was the strongest on Earth. A true immortal. After a long time, Lu Chen said faintly, where is he now? What about my mother? Did she transcend the tribulation with you, or is she still in the 6th heaven? This. We don't know much about your mother. You might have to ask your father yourself. As for Immortal Master Lu Yuan, he descended to the lower realm without permission, and is currently suffering boundless heavenly punishment. Nothing. Exhausted. Heavens. Punish. Lu Chen repeated each word. I've told you before that we can't reveal the fact that we've entered the Jotian, but your father skirted the line. He didn't tell you about the Jotian, but he used all the resources at his disposal and even exchanged his true immortal strength for a supreme treasure to change your constitution. Lu Chen was even more shocked. Gnolls. Monsters. Dual heavenly might. Could it be that all of this was left to him by his father? Lu Chen's eyes were red. This was a completely different person from the man who had abandoned him and his sister. His father had left without saying goodbye because he couldn't say anything, but he had used everything in exchange for an uncertain possibility. What kind of courage did he have to do this? You said that he exchanged his true immortal strength for a supreme treasure, and that he was being punished by the heavens? That's right, your father is only immortal now, but the Jotian has a corresponding way to punish your father. In the 9 heavens domain, there's a heaven-piercing prison that can make people immortal, but at the same time, they'll suffer endless punishment. Lu Chen couldn't hold back his tears. The man he had always hated had done so much for him and for Earth. The most painful thing was that no one understood what he had done. He knew that his son and daughter would definitely hate him. Lu Chen. The old man actually called Lu Chen by his real name. You just asked why we only received 19 coordinates when 20 of us came to the 7th heaven. The old man's smile had a trace of bitterness. Another person said, before immortal Master Lu Yuan left, he said that our strength was not enough to protect Earth. This last coordinate, which is related to the safety of the entire Earth, was to be left to his son. He said that he believed that one day, you would become the strongest person. You would become the person who would break this heartless world. You would become the person who would save the world from fire and water. He believed that you could do it. Lu Chen, the guide plan was also created by your father. The old man continued, if you didn't come to the seventh heaven in the stipulated time, Earth would be sacrificed. However, if the people there had a certain level of self-protection, they wouldn't be like some sacrificial planets, where they would be at the mercy of others. It can be said that the guide plan is another backup plan. Lu Chen vaguely remembered that when the guide first appeared, he had said, Earth doesn't have much time left. Now that he thought about it, the current situation was indeed very urgent. Dad. Lu Chen lowered his head. After being silent for a long time, he couldn't help but cry bitterly. When the others saw this, they silently left. At this time, what Lu Chen needed was to be alone for a while. In the evening, Lu Chen sat alone outside the cave, looking at the bright moon hanging high in the sky, lost in thought. The old man walked out and sat beside him. Lu Chen, do you still hate your father? Lu Chen shook his head, actually. I never hated him and my mother. In my memory, they loved me and my sister very much. It's just that those memories are too few, I can't remember clearly. I once thought that maybe they had a reason to leave. The old man lowered his head and smiled slightly, you are indeed different from ordinary people. Elder, how should I address you? Lu Chen turned to look at the old man. Oh, my immortal name is Li Shang. Elder Li Shang, even if there are 19 people other than my father, I only saw 10 before. What about the other 9? They died in the immortal war. Even if it's us, we can't cultivate now, the old man said calmly. Lu Chen was silent for a moment. During the day, he only cared about his own matters and neglected the fact that these people who forced themselves to pass the tribulation were also protecting Earth with the determination to die. Is the guide plan going well? It's going well, but reaching the 5th layer of heaven is the limit. Moreover, the time given to them is too short. Now we have 6 years. In 6 years, the new generation of Earth can't grow up. Without the support of resources, it's impossible to reach the 7th layer of heaven without a few hundred years. Of course, you are an exception. Lu Chen nodded. Indeed, Xiaoyi was only 3 years old now. Even if everything went well, he didn't know how long it would take for him to grow up in the Jyotian. The guide plan is actually to give the people of Earth a glimmer of hope even if they are sacrificed. Lu Chen thought of the origin god token. Didn't the origin god give the aborigines a glimmer of hope? This might be the limit of what they could do. Lu Chen, what do you plan to do next? Are you an immortal or a true immortal? Neither. Lu Chen said directly. None of them. Yes. Lu Chen nodded, but regardless of whether I'm an immortal or not, since I'm here, I will change the rules here. These are the rules of the Jyotian, not mine. Lu Chen suddenly stood up, his gaze piercing the sky, heaven's prison. I will definitely go. Chapter 1199. There were only 6 years left before Earth's final protection period. Lu Chen remembered that the old man on the immortal bestowment platform said that after becoming an immortal, there would be a considerable increase in strength. He did not complete the tribulation, so he lost this opportunity to improve. However, the old man seemed to be very interested in his potential. In other words, maybe he did gain something after passing 3 12th level tribulations. The 7th heaven no longer quantified attributes, and even the personal panel disappeared. Lu Chen could only find the gap through immortal battles or exchanging pointers. Senior Li Shang, may I ask, are there any restrictions on the 7th heaven war soul? Li Shang smiled. He was very clear about Lu Chen's situation. He relied on himself all the way. His strength was strong, but his theory was a mess. What's more, he was the first person to come to the seventh heaven after the Jiutian server officially opened on Earth. Naturally, he did not know the situation of the seventh heaven. He patiently explained, the seventh heaven war soul will no longer have the ability to combine soul and body. Ah! Isn't that a loss? Because the one who really set foot on the path of immortality is the body, the war soul's attributes will no longer be a restriction on the body's improvement. Li Shang said. Isn't this a big loss? No, Lu Chen, listen to me first. Li Shang said, the war soul's attributes now have two uses. One is as a storage, you can extract the attributes to yourself, and after extraction, the war soul's attributes will be reduced accordingly. In addition, the war soul can act independently. As long as you inject a little soul, your war soul will become your most loyal subordinate. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The war soul had this kind of use. Looking at Lu Chen's shocked expression, Li Shang laughed, the war soul can do a lot of things. Haven't you encountered many war souls before? In fact, these are war souls with part of the immortal's body's abilities. According to the amount of soul's infusion and the amount of attributes left, the war soul's abilities also have a big difference. The strength of the seventh heaven mainly depends on cultivation, and the progress of cultivation is often slower. Therefore, most people will extract a large part of the war soul's attributes, leaving a small part to help themselves with some trivial matters. If combined with some special items, the war soul's magical uses can be said to be countless. Speaking of which, Lu Chen remembered that he had encountered many war spirits in the past. The Desolate God, Ice God, and Muwa should also be war souls. Considering their use in the lower realm, it seemed that the separation of war souls could not be considered as weakening one's strength. Oh, by the way, if there's anything useful on war soul, you have to extract it as soon as possible. Lu Chen frowned and said, but there are some things that don't have a corresponding scroll, such as my mental cultivation method. Li Shang was not surprised, this problem of yours is something that everyone who has just entered the seventh layer of heaven will encounter. In the past, there was almost no body cultivation method, and cultivators relied on extracting it to enhance their body's attributes. But at the seventh heaven, extraction is no longer the most important method. Therefore, when becoming an immortal, the Jiutian will not only greatly increase the strength of the person undergoing the tribulation, but also directly transform the mental cultivation method and part of the cultivation method into a real cultivation method. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of air. Damn, this is not a small loss for me. Li Shang thought for a moment and said, your situation is a bit special, I have never heard of it, but there is no need to worry. Senior Li Shang, is there any way to remedy this? There is. Li Shang gave Lu Chen an answer that made him feel at ease. What way? The seventh heaven does not have a specific type of mental cultivation method treasure, but spirit tablets. If you collect enough spirit tablets, you can transfer the items on the war soul to yourself, whether it is mental cultivation method, or equipment. Of course, according to the level, the number of spirit tablets required for each item is also different. Lu Chen asked, where do you get these spirit tablets from? You can exchange for immortal war achievements, obtain immortal fate, true immortal rewards, exchange of treasures, and so on. In fact, this is a relatively common treasure, and there are still many ways to obtain it. However, Lu Chen still frowned. In his current situation, it might be too early for him to participate in the immortal war. After all, he still had the last coordinates of Earth, so he could not joke about it. As for the Immortal Academy, that was something that could only be encountered and not sought. True immortal rewards, he did not plan to recognize it as its master. The only feasible way was to exchange treasures, but he did not have any treasures on him to exchange. Could it be that he should exchange the little beast? He did not know if anyone wanted it. Lu Chen was letting his imagination run wild when he saw Li Shang snickering there. Lu Chen suddenly felt that something was wrong. Senior Li Shang, why are you snickering here? How am I snickering? Li Shang was caught off guard by Lu Chen's words. I am smiling with deep meaning. Oh, then why are you smiling with deep meaning? Li Shang's face darkened. This kid really did not look like an immortal. Did you forget? We have been here for a few years. We also know that our strength is limited, so we have been living frugally. In addition to the previous large amount of resources, we have also accumulated a lot of spirit tablets. Lu Chen opened his eyes wide. He suddenly saw hope. Thank you, Senior Li Shang. I have not said that I am going to give it to you. Li Shang shook his head. This kid sometimes was silly, but sometimes he was even more shrewd than a monkey. Well, I will not keep you in suspense. Immortal Master Lu Yuan has already left some for you, plus us. There is a total of 1,100 pieces. In any case, we already have no use for them, so I am definitely going to give them to you, 1,100 pieces. Lu Chen was pleasantly surprised. This time he could transfer all the Divine Devil set that was not extracted from the War Soul. Li Shang smiled. 1,100 pieces of spirit tablets, this can also be considered a huge amount of wealth. How about it, we old things still have some use, haha, here, these spirit tablets should be able to exchange for a lot of things. Lu Chen took a neat stack of spirit tablets. These spirit tablets were like dragon scales. Each piece was the size of a palm, but as thin as a cicada's wing. More than 1,000 pieces stacked together did not have much thickness. Your War Soul's property interface can still be used, so first summon the War Soul, insert the scales into the item that needs to be embodied, then you can transfer it. Li Shang instructed Lu Chen. Now the War Soul could be summoned, and did not rely on soul-body fusion to awaken the War Soul. Lu Chen tried to summon the War Soul. In front of him, there appeared a guy that looked exactly like him. This was his War Soul. Lu Chen looked at the War Soul's property interface. Everything was normal. First extract the Divine Devil Mixed Yuan Cultivation Method. Cultivation method is the foundation of cultivation, it must be extracted first. Insert a piece of spirit tablet. No reaction, 2 pieces. No reaction, 3 pieces. Still no reaction. Lu Chen suddenly felt like he was throwing money. Inserting spirit tablets one by one, was like throwing $100 bill after another, 700 pieces. Lu Chen was about to cry. With a sad face, he was still inserting spirit tablets. Senior Li Shang, is 1,100 pieces really a huge amount of wealth? Li Shang's face was ashen. That, Lu Chen, what exactly are you extracting? 700 pieces and you still haven't extracted it. Generally, immortal techniques only need 200 to 300 pieces to extract it. 900 pieces. Lu Chen almost suspected that his War Soul was broken. Lu Yuan was a legend true immortal, plus Li Shang and a dozen others. They also had the support of large amounts of resources from the Jiutian. Only then could they save up 1,100 pieces of spirit tablets. In the blink of an eye, Lu Chen had already inserted 980 pieces. And the Divine Devil Mixed Yuan Cultivation Method, still could not extract it. Chapter 1200. Lu Chen never thought that there would be a day when he would be such a prodigal. Until he smashed 1,000 pieces of spirit tablets, finally, the Divine and Devil Origin Cultivation Method became usable. Lu Chen let out a long sigh of relief. In any case, he managed to get it out. Although mentioning a mental cultivation method almost made him bankrupt, it was better than not mentioning it at all. You got it? Yes, I used a whole 1,000 pieces. Lu Chen was relieved. 1,000 pieces. Li Shang was in a trance. Is it the Divine and Devil set? Mental cultivation method. Lu Chen said, by the way, Senior Li Shang, I used to be able to use those techniques, why do I have to extract them now? Before, you could use the Battle Soul Fusion, even if you didn't use the Battle Soul fusion, the Battle Soul's ability was connected to yours, but now you are completely separated from the Battle Soul, naturally you have to bring it up. Lu Chen nodded. It seems that the most fundamental reason was because the Battle Soul was independent. The Divine and Devil Origin cultivation method required 1,000 pieces of spirit tablets, then he still had several Divine and Devil sets to transfer. It seems that he still needed a large number of spirit tablets. Lu Chen, we still have some extraction scrolls here, do you want to extract the Battle Soul's attributes? Li Shang asked. Lu Chen thought for a moment, shook his head and said, I have a lot of techniques with the Battle Soul, I can't extract them all at once, and my Battle Soul's strength is not weak, I have to find more spirit tablets, sometimes I have to rely on him. Lu Chen thought for a moment, no matter what, he could now use the Divine and Devil Origin cultivation method, so the next most important thing was to see if his so-called potential had increased during the heavenly tribulation. Senior Li Shang, can I practice here? Of course. Li Shang said straightforwardly, no matter how shabby it is still our home. You are also the son of immortal Master Lu Yuan, speaking of which, you should be the real owner of this 9-star paradise. Lu Chen smiled, I am not the owner, what Senior Li Shang said is right, this place will be the home of Earth's people in the future. There was a special cultivation room in the 9-star heavenly abode. There was a spirit gathering array in the cultivation room, which made the spirit chi more abundant than the other areas in the 9-star heavenly abode. Lu Chen entered a state of cultivation. Previously, Lu Chen's base spiritual energy value was 500, and with the addition of the 10 wings and the all things bloodline, the final value was 7 million. Logically speaking, these attributes had already reached the peak of a 9-star human king. Unless one became a deity, they could not increase any further. As long as his spiritual power continued to increase, it meant that although Lu Chen had yet to become an immortal, his path of cultivation was still open. Unfortunately, the 7th heaven did not quantify attributes. Lu Chen could not open his personal interface and could only rely on his own perception. Everyone here was from Earth. Lu Chen directly entered the spirit aura subtlety and the Inata state, carefully sensing the changes in his spirit core. Strands of spirit energy seeped into his skin from the surroundings and entered his body. Then, they entered his spirit core through his meridians. Under the effect of the spirit core, the spirit energy transformed into spirit energy and was stored within the spirit core. The spiritual power of the spirit core was increasing. Lu Chen suddenly opened his eyes. His spiritual power was increasing. His upper limit had already been broken, and he could continue to cultivate. That's great, I can still cultivate. Lu Chen exclaimed in a low voice. Good, since that's the case, I don't need to care if others are immortals. I still have the ability to fight. The Celestial Demon Origin cultivation technique is now at the 6th level. Previously, it said that it would increase my spiritual power by 120 points per minute. Unfortunately, I can't enter the state of Celestial Demon Symbiosis, so I can only increase my spiritual power by 1/5 every minute, which is 24 points. However, the 9-star heavenly abode has a cultivation bonus, and the cultivation effect feels double that of the outside world. This way, I can increase my spiritual power by 48 points per minute. As Lu Chen spoke, he made a vertical calculation on the ground, 1 hour. 60 multiplied by 48 equals 2,880. 1 day, 24 multiplied by 2,880 equals 69,120. That's still okay. I'll cultivate here for a while and see if I can increase my star level. Lu Chen probably did not expect that after saying this, he would enter a long period of cultivation. This closed-door cultivation lasted for 3 months. Except for the food and water that would be sent to him every day, Lu Chen did not sleep or rest, and spent all his time cultivating. Lu Chen could clearly feel that his spirit core was constantly replenishing his spiritual power, and it had even doubled from before. After 3 months and a few days, Lu Chen suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling, just like the feeling when he was about to break through. The spirit core is full, am about to break through. Lu Chen hurriedly concentrated and continued to absorb the spiritual power. Not long after, a warm current suddenly flowed through Lu Chen's body. The spirit energy in his spirit core automatically spread out and filled every meridian, blood vessel, muscle, and skin of Lu Chen. Lu Chen clearly felt that the spiritual power was strengthening every cell in his body. At the same time, the foreign matter in his body was squeezed out of his body, forming a thick layer of impurities on the surface of his body. His body was indescribably comfortable. This process lasted for a full 10 hours. When this feeling disappeared, Lu Chen was already drenched in sweat, and his body was incomparably dirty. Damn, what is this? Lu Chen looked at his dirty body, and even despised himself, and hurriedly sneaked out of the cave abode. Speaking of which, there was actually no one in the cave abode today, and he did not know where those people had run off to. Lu Chen did not care anymore, and found a small stream nearby to take a bath. He also washed and dried his clothes while he was at it. Luckily, no one saw me, or else it would be really embarrassing. Lu Chen put on the Hell Dragon outfit. Right at this moment, he saw his own badge. There was a fog surrounding it, and Lu Chen waved his hand to disperse the fog. At this moment, the words on the badge had actually changed. 10-star Savage King Realm. Lu Chen was stunned for a long time. What the hell was a 10-star Savage King? He was indeed a 9-star Savage King before, but wasn't at the peak. Even if he rose in stars, shouldn't he have entered the next major realm? Right, below the human king realm should be either itinerant immortals or true immortals, and I did not become an immortal, but forcibly rose in stars, so I became a 10-star Savage King. Lu Chen thought. It seemed that this was the only explanation. Speaking of which, according to his cultivation speed, in these 3 months, his spiritual energy should have increased by about 5 million. From 9 stars to 10 stars, it actually took 5 million spiritual energy. This 1-star increase was equivalent to the sum of all his previous spiritual energy. Damn, other people walk further and further on the path of cultivation, but in the end, I walk further and further on the path of savages. Lu Chen shook his head helplessly. I don't know how the strength of a 10-star Savage King compares to an itinerant immortal. Also, is 10 stars my limit? Thinking of this, Lu Chen did not wait for Li Shang and the others to come back, and immediately returned to the cave abode, casually ate something, and continued to cultivate in the cultivation room. This time, I'll rise a few more stars. Lu Chen sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. After saying that, he once again entered the spirit subtlety and anatta state. Chapter 1201. Li Shang and the others are also unable to understand. Ever since Lu Chen that guy came to the 7th layer of heaven, he went straight into the cultivation room. This is already the end of the 4th year since Lu Chen came here. Other than seeing him delivering food every day, this guy seems to be rooted in the cultivation room. Li Shang, it has already been 4 years. It has already been 4 years since Lu Chen came to the 7th layer of heaven. There is only less than 2 years left until the end of the Earth's protection period. But he still has not left the 9th star paradise. Jin Luan, I know you are anxious. We are all as anxious as you. Li Shang says, but don't forget, Immortal Master Lu Yuan did give Lu Chen a different opportunity. But for him to be able to come to this point, it is all because of himself. So we have no reason to not believe in him. I think he must know what he is doing. Jin Luan frowns as she looks at the closed cultivation room and sighs, it is not that I don't believe in him. It is just that right now all our hopes are on him alone. And he is not even a loose immortal. AI, it seems that we will not be able to protect the earth in the end. This time Li Shang does not say anything. Lu Chen's situation is really too special. By the way, how many spirit tablets have everyone accumulated in these past few years? Let's add them up and see if they can be of help when Lu Chen comes out. Everyone takes out the spirit tablets they have on them. I have received a salary from the Immortal Master for the past 4 years. Including the reward from the Immortal Master, I have received a total of 6. I received 1 a year, so I have a total of 4. I sold the bone-dissolving pill. Adding the 4 I earned as a servant in the Immortal Master's cave, I have a total of 11. Everyone takes out all the spirit tablets they have on them. Li Shang gathered everyone's spirit tablets, his face anxious, a total of 64 tablets. That kid needs 1,000 tablets for each transfer. I'm afraid these spirit tablets are just a drop in the bucket for him. Doesn't Lu Chen have the God Fiend set? It's not surprising that it requires a large number of spirit tablets. It's just that, such a consumption is really not something we can afford. We forcefully transcended the tribulation to reach the 7th firmament. Our strength is weak to begin with. We have either died or been injured while guarding the coordinates. Until now, we don't even have the money to treat our injuries. Earning this much is already the limit, Jin Luan said with a sigh. Li Shang sighed, I know, everyone has worked hard. With that, he put the spirit tablet away. It's getting late. Everyone, get some rest. You still have to return to your immortal masters tomorrow. After that, everyone went to rest on their own stone beds. In the dead of the night, all the loose immortals were already resting. The dusty door of the training room opened gently, and a black savage walked out. Lu Chen had just broken through, and his body was covered in impurities. Previously, he didn't dare to come out when he heard people talking outside. Now that everyone was resting, he dared to come out. After staying here for 4 years, Lu Chen was already familiar with the surroundings. He quickly ran to the stream to wash up. This time, Lu Chen let Little Beastie and the rest out. Dad, how many stars are you now? Little Beastie rushed to Lu Chen as soon as it came out. Dad, let me help you scrub your back. 13 stars. Lu Chen shook his head helplessly. He was already 13 stars, but he was still the king of savages. Then Dad, when are you going to bring us out? We've been here for 4 years. It's so boring. Little Furball and Little Originator were playing around in the water. It was obvious that they were bored out of their wits. Anyway, it was rare for them to come out, so the 2 of them were playing around. I know you're bored. I'm bored too. I cultivate every day, but my cultivation speed is slow. Lu Chen shook his head. But you heard it before. Senior Li Shang and the rest went to the Immortal Master's cave to collect spirit tablets for me. In the end, they only collected a few dozen tablets. It will take me a long time to extract the 9 transformations of gods and demons, so I can only cultivate first. Little Beastie nodded thoughtfully. Then, Dad, what are you going to do next? There are only 2 years left before the protection period. Lu Chen said, there are only 2 years left. I can't cultivate anymore. Not only is the Earth's protection period, but there are also only 2 years left before the final battle. I have to count the days ahead. Can the 13-star king of savages defeat a true immortal? I don't know. If I quantify it, my 80 million spiritual energy should be enough, right? Lu Chen said uncertainly. Also, when I broke through this time, I felt quite strange. In the past, after my spiritual energy increased, I needed to increase my 3 dimensions separately. But in the 7th layer of heaven, every breakthrough will transform my body. The 3 dimensions are obviously higher than before. Lu Chen was not used to suddenly losing his data reference. Forget it, I can't care so much now. I have to earn spirit tablets as soon as possible to restore my strength. Lu Chen said. Lu Chen took a bath and quietly returned to the 9-star cave. He found an empty stone bed and fell asleep. The next morning, Li Shang and the rest found that there was one more person beside them. It was Lu Chen who had been in seclusion for 4 years. Lu Chen also slowly opened his eyes. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, he hurriedly sat up. At first glance, he saw that 4 or 5 people had obvious external injuries. Although they had been simply bandaged, in some places, he could even see the white bones. How was this external injury? It was simply the flesh being torn open and the flesh being dug out. Lu Chen suddenly opened his eyes wide. What's with the injuries on your body? Everyone's eyes flickered. Lu Chen sat up and grabbed someone's wrist. Senior, what's going on? That person wanted to say something but hesitated. He looked at Li Shang for help. Lu Chen. Li Shang pulled away Lu Chen's hand. It's no big deal. Being a servant, sometimes it's inevitable to be punished. We are already used to it. Lu Chen opened his eyes wide. Lu Chen, don't say this. Look at what this is. Li Shang happily took out a small stack of spirit tablets and handed it to Lu Chen. This should be what you need the most right now. Unfortunately, we are only half useless people, we can't earn much. Lu Chen took the spirit tablets, his eyes wide open. These seniors did not hesitate to be the servants of other immortal masters. They endured humiliation and earned spirit tablets for him. Who is your immortal master? Lu Chen asked coldly. Lu Chen. Don't be impulsive. Li Shang snapped, don't tell me you want to find a true immortal to take revenge. You are not even a loose immortal now. How many god and devil sets have you taken? You are courting death. Lu Chen stood up angrily, I did not come to the 7th layer of heaven to let you be the servants of other people. So what if I am not an immortal? Those who dare to touch my people must pay the price. Now tell me who injured you, otherwise I will leave the 9th star paradise. Everyone had never seen Lu Chen so angry. They looked at each other, no one was willing to say anything. You don't want to say it? I will go check it myself. Lu Chen said and turned to leave. Stop. Li Shang was also convinced by Lu Chen's temper, your safety now is related to the survival of Earth. Lu Chen said coldly, I have never thought of enduring humiliation to protect Earth. Whether it is me or Earth, we will not drag out an ignoble existence. Good, you really piss me off. The one who hit them was not their immortal master, but the loose immortal followers of the immortal master of 5 tribulation immortal. Touching his followers is equivalent to offending a true immortal. Do you really want to offend a 5 tribulation immortal? Lu Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent, take me to see those loose immortal followers now. Chapter 1202. Li Shang still wants to say something but Jin Luan pulls Li Shang to the side and whispers, perhaps we should believe Lu Chen this time. He has been in 7th layer of heaven for 4 years, if he has not made any progress, then we don't have any hope. Li Shang is silent for a long time, then sighs. Jin Luan's words are reasonable. After a moment, Li Shang walks in front of Lu Chen and looks at Lu Chen, we will take you there. A group of people teleported to Qinyu Medicine Garden, this is where Gu Yan and others work. The medicine garden is very big, almost the same as the medicine garden of God and Devil Holy Courtyard. Standing outside the medicine garden, one can see dozens of figures taking care of the herbs. At the entrance of the medicine garden, 3 people are sitting around. They are drinking tea while occasionally looking up at the medicine garden. At this time, they see these people from Earth, immediately get up and swagger over. It's you really have big guts, do you know the time has passed? With that, one of them pulls out a whip from his hand and comes up to Gu Yan. Gu Yan does not even dare to dodge, he only raises his hand to block. Lu Chen at the side slightly narrows his eyes, these guys, in order to help him earn a little bit of spirit tablets, what kind of humiliation do they usually endure? Those 64 spirit tablets are not much, but now they have become heavy. Those are what they exchanged with their dignity and flesh. Suddenly, a hand firmly grabs the other end of the whip. The person wielding the whip stares at Lu Chen and angrily says, "Audacious, who are you, actually dare to meddle in this father's business?" Lu Chen's eyes emit a faint green gas. "Today I will not only meddle, I will also make you pay 100-fold for the evil deeds you committed against my friend." That person tries to pull back the whip from Lu Chen's hand, but the whip in Lu Chen's hand does not move at all. You are true immortal." "No." Lu Chen coldly says. Hearing this answer, those three people look at each other. Suddenly their confidence multiplies. "Trifling loose immortal also dare to cause trouble. Do you know which immortal master this medicine garden belongs to? Do you know who we are? Even if you don't mention me and my master, we're all loose immortals who survived a level 6 heavenly tribulation. You can't afford to offend us." Lu Chen coldly snorted and suddenly loosened his grip. The man was caught off guard and retreated a few steps. "You're really acting superior even though you're a dog." Lu Chen walked forward alone. He stretched his neck and moved his wrists. Speaking of which, he really hadn't fought for a long time. He was a little rusty. "Sorry, I'm not even an itinerant immortal." Lu Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent. "So what if you are immortals? So what if I'm immortal? Today, I, immortal, will teach you immortals a lesson." After saying that, Lu Chen immediately dispersed half of the fog on the badge, revealing only the words, "Human King Realm." Those people looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with shock. Human King Realm. What is going on? How can a seventh layer of heaven reach the Human King Realm? Who cares? A mere mortal dares to trespass into the immortal realm. Today, I'll let you know that this is not a place you can come to. Kill this mortal for me. After saying that, the three loose immortals exploded with spiritual chi. Except for the defensive array in the herb garden, the aftermath was like a level 12 hurricane, even uprooting the surrounding trees. "Kid, did you see that? You've never seen such fierce spiritual chi in your life. This is the difference between immortals and mortals." One of them pulled out a broadsword with a tiger head. His figure was like lightning, instantly flashing in front of Lu Chen. Tiger roar swallowing sky slash. Lu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. At some point, a black spear had appeared in his hand. Just as the tiger roar swallowing sky slash was about to land in front of him, Lu Chen's figure suddenly exploded. Instead of retreating, he advanced and shouted in a low voice, "You're an itinerant immortal, right? Die for me." Spear weight shattering stars. Shattering stars was not a very powerful move in the spear way. However, Lu Chen's speed and the ferocity of his move were so fast that even the itinerant immortal could not react in time. This spear directly pierced through the itinerant immortal's body before the tiger roar swallowing sky slash. The spear directly came out of that person's body, and Lu Chen himself had already arrived behind that person. Grabbing the spear, he instantly appeared in front of the second person. Spear Wei Empyrean Spear. That person's eyes were filled with terror. Before he could even use his displacement skill, the god-slaying spear directly pierced through his throat. At the same time, Lu Chen had already flashed in front of the third person. This person was the one who had wielded the whip previously. He pinched that person's face with one hand, his fingers forming a claw, and his gaze was cold. A cold voice said, "I've left you a special gift. Star dust of destruction." That person's face was rapidly disintegrating at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this moment, how could he still care about wielding the whip? He retreated several steps, hugging his face and screaming in terror, "My face, my face." Not only his face, the star dust of destruction was rapidly disintegrating his entire body. His face rapidly disintegrated until only his bones were left, followed by his neck, torso, limbs. Not long after, he was completely disintegrated without even leaving a corpse behind. 3/6 tribulation itinerant immortals were all killed by Lu Chen in the blink of an eye. Seeing this scene, Li Shang and the rest were already dumbfounded from shock, their bodies stiffened. My heavens! What happened? Li Shang, didn't you say that he didn't become an immortal? Why is he so strong? Killing itinerant immortals like killing chickens. No, even killing chickens is harder than this. I thought that after coming to the seventh heaven, I would no longer be shocked so easily. I didn't expect that I was wrong, the son of true immortal Lu Yuan is too strong. Li Shang looked at that cold back view, as if in a trance, he saw the back view of another person. That strongest man on earth, the only man who became a true immortal, but his son is more terrifying than him. When he attacked, there was no trace of hesitation. Even 1 against 3, he was still able to easily kill 3 sixth tribulation itinerant immortals with ease. What a terrifying battle power. He still hasn't completely extracted the power of the God-Devil suit. Too strong, too strong. Really too strong. Li Shang said, too strong, 3 times in a row, showing how shocked he was in his heart. After Lu Chen finished off the 3 itinerant immortals, he turned around and looked at his companions, Senior Gu Yan, when will that 5th tribulation true immortal come? Gu Yan was stunned for a moment. Lu Chen, what do you want to do? Lu Chen snorted coldly, wait for him. Although he didn't attack, the fault of the hanger-on is also related to him. Today, he must give me an explanation, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite to him. After saying that, Lu Chen actually directly sat down cross-legged on the ground and entered into a state of cultivation. The group of people only felt their hair stand on end. What kind of situation is this? If it was an ordinary person, after killing other people's hanger-on, why wouldn't he run? Who would be so stupid to wait for the true immortal to come and find him? But Lu Chen, killing 3 hanger-ons is not enough, he must make the master come out and apologize. Li Shang suddenly said, this kid really has the potential to be a bandit. Chapter 1203. Lu Chen, why don't we leave first? Gu Yan looked at Lu Chen worriedly. He won't let us off after killing 3 of longevity's guests. Lu Chen shook his head. What's there to be afraid of? I'll wait for him to come. If I don't teach him a lesson today, I'll have come for nothing. While they were talking, dozens of figures suddenly appeared in front of the herb garden. There were about 40 to 50 of them. The leader was dressed in white, handsome and cold. He looked coldly at the 2 corpses on the ground, then narrowed his eyes at the loose immortals on earth. Finally, his gaze landed on Lu Chen who was sitting cross-legged. It's longevity immortal master. Gu Yan and the rest's expression changed. Not only was longevity immortal master here, but he also brought more than 40 loose immortal guests. This is really troublesome. You killed them? That person's tone was bone-chilling. Lu Chen stood up and looked at him calmly. He sneered. That's right. Did you know they were longevity's guests and loose immortals? So what if I knew? They hurt my friends and attacked without any explanation. I could only teach them to be quiet. Longevity narrowed his eyes. When he was sizing up Lu Chen, he suddenly saw Lu Chen's badge. Human King Realm. Human King Realm. You're a Human King Realm mortal. Lu Chen smiled. Yes, there was an accident during the tribulation, so I came directly to the 7th heaven. A loose immortal beside him laughed maniacally. A mortal dares to cause trouble in the immortal region. Don't you know that everyone here is loose immortal? Lu Chen pursed his lips and waved the god-slaying spear in his hand. I know. For example, the 3 I killed were 6th tribulation loose immortals. Unfortunately, they weren't strong enough. That person's laughter stopped abruptly. It didn't matter if this guy was Human King Realm, immortal, or something else. 3 loose immortals had died in his hands. That was the truth. You're really arrogant. Sangli and the others are only 6th tribulation loose immortals, and they haven't cultivated for long, so they haven't reached the upper limit. Do you think you're the strongest loose immortal just because you killed them? Lu Chen smiled. So you're saying that you've reached your limit? If you are not convinced, you can give it a try. That person snorted coldly. Just as he was about to step out, Changxing pulled him back. Immortal Master, Changxing didn't answer him. Instead, he looked at Lu Chen. You were able to kill Sangli and the other two, which means that you have some strength. These 3 were weak, so it's fine if they were killed. I, Changxing, do not keep useless retainers. I wonder if your excellency is interested in acknowledging me as its master. If you have this idea, I can let bygones be bygones and take you in as a follower of me, a 5 tribulation true immortal. Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh. What was this guy thinking? You actually want me to recognize you as my master? However, on the other hand, it wasn't hard to see that even high-level itinerant immortals like retainers were nothing in the eyes of a true immortal. Li Shang and the others were even less worth mentioning in his eyes. It seems that true immortals really are emotionless creatures. Lu Chen shook his head. Unfortunately, I don't want to acknowledge you as my master. Even if I wanted to, you're not worthy. What did you say? Changxing's expression instantly changed. His face darkened. I, a true immortal, am willing to take an immortal like you. You actually don't know what's good for you. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. Who said that mortals have to rely on immortals like you? Changxing, if you don't want to die, apologize to my friends right now and give them sufficient compensation. Otherwise, I don't care if you're a 5 tribulation true immortal or itinerant immortal. If you can't even be a human, how can you be an immortal? It's better to be a ghost. When Changxing heard this, a rare anger appeared on his calm face. How arrogant! A mere mortal dares to be so arrogant in front of me, the immortal master. Fine, I'll show you how big the gap between a true immortal and an itinerant immortal is. With a boom, Changxing's body erupted with shocking spiritual energy. Even the defense array of the herb garden was shaken to the point of collapse. The clouds in the sky tumbled wildly, and the wind and clouds within 100 miles suddenly changed. The immortal aura of a 5 tribulation true immortal was already so terrifying. It was no exaggeration to say that the residual power of Changxing's spiritual energy was something that Lu Chen had never seen before. Whether it was Mu Xian, the soul of 10,000 underworld in the river of forgetfulness, the king of hell, the lord of the 6th heaven underworld, or Jiu, Ern, or the old devil Tianyin, they were nothing compared to Changxing. This was the strength of a true immortal. And 2 years later, the opponent Lu Chen encountered was even stronger than him by who knows how many times. Jin Luan clenched his fists tightly, and his forehead was already sweating. This Changxing should be a 3-star true immortal, right? Gu Yan, do you know his battle record in the Immortal War? 5 tribulation referred to Changxing's potential, while 3-star referred to the current level of a true immortal. There were no itinerant immortals of this level, only true immortals, because only true immortals could open the path to immortality. Gu Yan said, Changxing is indeed a 3-star true immortal, and his battle record is 4 wins out of 4. 4 wins out of 4. Doesn't that mean he has never tasted defeat? Jin Luan's eyes widened. It seemed that this guy was quite powerful among true immortals of the same level. And Lu Chen was still immortal. At this moment, Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, holding the void god-slaying spear, and stared at Changxing. I don't kill nameless people. Tell me your name. Changxing's spiritual energy was as vast as the ocean, and his voice became extremely solemn. Remember it well. Solipsistic. Lu Chen said coldly. This time, Lu Chen did not let his guard down. This time, he was facing a true immortal, who was definitely the strongest of all his enemies. And now, he did not even have the celestial demon symbiosis. Solipsistic, you are indeed extremely arrogant. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then I can only kill you. A long sword appeared in Chongqing's hand. He suddenly grabbed the long sword with one hand, and his figure instantly rushed forward. Drunken immortal star stepping steps. Immortal technique, daybreak, purple lightning shadow. Chongqing turned into a purple lightning bolt and shot towards Lu Chen. It's an immortal technique. Gu Yan said in horror. Astral form. So fast. Jin Luan was also extremely shocked. They had not seen a true immortal in action for a long time. His first move is an immortal technique killer move. Not good, Lu Chen, be careful. Li Shang's eyes widened, and his muscles unconsciously tightened. The opponent's speed was too fast. Lu Chen quickly activated the celestial demon heavenly eyes. Void God-slaying spear Dao, emptiness spear. The black spear in Lu Chen's hand suddenly exploded with a wave of spiritual energy, as if another form of the spear had awakened. If the god-slaying spear that killed the individual immortals previously only displayed the power of the silver gallbladder, then now it was displaying the power of the god-slaying silver gallbladder. A spear's shadow and a sword's shadow instantly collided head-on, erupting with terrifying spiritual energy aftershocks. The defense array of the herb garden at the side was directly shattered. Many individual immortals, whether they were Chongqing's hangers-on or Li Shang and the others, were all pushed back 100 meters by the shockwave. On the ground in the center of the battlefield, a deep curved pit with a diameter of hundreds of meters suddenly appeared. At the same time, two figures, one black and one white, violently collided, and both were pushed back. But just when Li Shang and the others thought that both sides were defeated, the black figure forcibly stopped its momentum and then rushed towards Chongqing. A 5 tribulation true immortal is nothing more than this. Die. Void God-slaying Dao, army breaking. Chapter 1204. Chongqing did not expect this mortal solipsistic to be so ferocious. Without waiting for the residual force to dissipate, he took it head-on and turned around to charge. You can actually take my immortal technique head-on. Seeing that Lu Chen was about to launch a powerful attack, Chongqing did not dare to be careless. He pinched his fingers together and a long sword shot out. Psychic Immortal Sword Art, Imperial Sword Demon Slaying. That long sword transformed into a 100-meter-long sword shadow and shot towards Lu Chen. Destruction of 1,000 armies and Imperial Sword Demon Slaying collided head-on. With a loud boom, a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation exploded on the battlefield again. The Imperial Sword technique was similar to the owner's spiritual energy. Chongqing was shaken by the huge force. Like a beam of white light, he slammed into the ground and created a huge pit. Not long after, a black figure stood in front of Chongqing, who was covered in blood. He said coldly, "Fellow true immortal, I'm sorry. Can we talk about the apology now?" Chongqing felt that his body was about to fall apart. He fell to the ground, his face ashen. He looked at Lu Chen in horror. You're really immortal. Impossible. How can a mortal fight an immortal? Lu Chen snorted. Watch your words. I'm not an ordinary mortal. I'm the human king. After saying that, Lu Chen walked in front of Chongqing, grabbed him by the collar with one hand, and carried him out of the big pit. Arriving in front of Gu Yan and the rest, Lu Chen threw Chongqing to the ground. Senior Gu Yan, let him take a look at your injuries. Gu Yan still hadn't recovered from the shock, and his mind was blank. This true immortal was carried over by Lu Chen like a little chick. If he did not see it with his own eyes, who would believe it? Senior Gu Yan. Lu Chen called out again. Gu Yan came to his senses. He took off his shirt and carefully untied the bandage on his chest. Then, he turned around. His wound was on his back. Horrifying whip marks crisscrossed. His skin was eroded, and bones could be seen in many places. The injuries of the others were even more serious than Gu Yan's. This was also the first time that Lu Chen had seen Gu Yan's injuries. He was instantly enraged. He gritted his teeth and said, "I didn't know that you were injured so badly. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let those three die so easily. When Sang Li and the others whipped us, they didn't allow us to use spiritual energy to block it. Otherwise, the punishment would be doubled." Lu Chen clenched his fists and glared at Changsheng. He bellowed, "Kneel." Longevity's eyes instantly widened. This fellow wanted him, a dignified true immortal, to kneel before these weak loose immortals. Solipsistic, don't go overboard. Lu Chen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The God Destroyer spear instantly burst into flames. "Do you think I don't dare to kill you?" After saying that, Lu Chen pierced Longevity's shoulder with his spear. "If not for the fact that you didn't participate in this matter personally, I wouldn't even give you the chance to apologize." The scorching underworld earth fire burned Longevity's body. He was in so much pain that his face turned pale. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore and knelt before Gu Yan and the others. Seeing this, the loose immortal mercenaries of the Longevity sect were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. A true immortal kneeling before a loose immortal. This was unheard of in the seventh heaven. What was even more inconceivable was that this was all because of a mortal. Spare my life." Longevity clenched his teeth and squeezed out these words. Lu Chen then pulled out his God Destroyer spear. Longevity looked up at Gu Yan and the others. In the end, he lowered his noble head. "I'm sorry. It was I who connived with my mercenaries and offended everyone. From today onwards, you can remove your master relationship. I will give you 500 Fushi pills, 500 divine body pills, 500 mad spirit pills, and 500 spirit tablets as compensation. Please calm down." Gu Yan and the others looked at each other in shock. They didn't expect that the Longevity Immortal Master would not only kneel in front of them to beg for forgiveness, but also offer such generous compensation. Gu Yan didn't know what to do for a moment. After Longevity finished speaking, he didn't look at Gu Yan and the others' reactions. Instead, he looked directly at Lu Chen. Obviously, he was afraid that the malefactor wouldn't be satisfied. That guy was too ruthless. All he did was talk back, and he didn't even inform him. He almost crippled him. If he didn't take action with such a ruthless person, he might even get shot in the right shoulder. That shot didn't feel good at all. Without waiting for Gu Yan and the others to agree, Lu Chen spoke. "That's all. I think you still haven't realized your mistake." Longevity spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't clear whether it was because of his injury or because he was angered by Lu Chen's words. "Solipsistic, you. The compensation I gave had already far exceeded what they needed to recover. Is this still not enough? The physical injuries are barely enough. But what about the mental injuries?" Lu Chen looked at Longevity and tried to ask for compensation for the mental injuries. Mental trauma. Changsheng was stunned. What the hell was this? Unfortunately, he didn't dare to ask more now. If he lost his life, it wouldn't be a matter of compensation anymore. Then what kind of compensation do you want? Can you make it clear? Lu Chen looked at the aggrieved Longevity and reminded him, "Your herb garden is quite big, the scenery is beautiful and the spirit energy is abundant. It's a good place to heal mental injuries." Longevity immediately understood, compensate. This Chinua herb garden should also be compensated to everyone. Only then can it heal everyone's mental injuries. "Oh right, I will also give you the itinerant immortals here." Longevity completely didn't want the lousy stall that Sang Li left for him. If this malefactor were to withdraw again, this guy would definitely extort him again. Lu Chen looked at Gu Yan and the others. Seniors, are you satisfied with this compensation? Or should we just kill him and be done with it? Longevity was trembling with fear as he listened at the side. It was already like this and that guy still didn't seem to be satisfied. When Gu Yan heard, he jumped in fright. To be able to make a true immortal master apologize was already something they didn't dare to think about, much less compensation. Longevity's compensation was already very terrifying. A large amount of pills, 500 spirit tablets and a small herb garden. But Gu Yan still said, we don't need the pills. But we want 1,000 spirit tablets. Hearing Gu Yan's request, Lu Chen's heart warmed. Gu Yan wanted the spirit tablets for him. Longevity was afraid of Lu Chen but not Gu Yan. Hearing Gu Yan's request, his attitude immediately changed. 1,000 spirit tablets. You are. Lu Chen interrupted Chongqing's words and said coldly, just 1,000 pieces. I want the elixirs and 1,000 spirit tablets. I'll give you 2 hours. If you can't compensate me, I'll let your right-hand man collect your corpse. Longevity didn't dare to contradict Lu Chen. Although his flesh hurt terribly, but thinking of Lu Chen's methods, he could only endure it. Then all right. I wondered if I can get someone to gather it now. Longevity looked at Lu Chen. Lu Chen didn't say anything, which could be considered as tacit consent. Longevity stood up shakily and called for the 2 retainers and itinerant immortals, ordering them to bring the compensation items. Immortal Master, 1,000 spirit tablets, even our residence doesn't have that many, right? Longevity exploded, don't talk nonsense with me. You must bring them all here within an hour. Chapter 1205. Li Shang and the others are currently taking stock of the resources in the 9-star immortal cave. A few of them are already grinning from ear to ear. Ha ha ha, the harvest of this robbery is too incredible. In the past when we were rich, we might not have thought much of it, but after reaching the 7th layer of heaven, we have never seen so many resources. Golden Luan laughs until her eyes disappear. The pills are not too high grade, but these 1,000 spirit tablets and herb garden are definitely a big blow to Chongqing's vitality. Lu Chen comes over, Senior Golden Luan, how can this be called robbery? We should be fighting for legitimate rights and interests. Good. Anyway, you are the bandit leader. Whatever you say is right. Li Shang happily takes stock of the pills. Lu Chen is speechless. Li Shang is even more excessive, directly calling him bandit leader. Senior Gu Yan, you guys use these pills to treat your injuries. If you need any more pills, just let me know. Lu Chen says. Gu Yan says, actually, these physical injuries can always be healed slowly. These pills are too wasteful on us. It is better to exchange them for some spirit tablets. With so many pills, we can probably exchange them for 300 to 400 spirit tablets. Lu Chen slightly frowns, only 300 to 400 spirit tablets. I heard you guys say that one bone-melting pill can be exchanged for 6 to 7 spirit tablets. And, these are all low-grade pills. They can't be compared to the bone-melting pill. The person who sold the bone-melting pill is called Xian Hua. He says, bone-melting pill is a high-grade immortal pill given by Jiutian. It can melt bones and regenerate them. Originally, we wanted to wait for you to come up and save them for a rainy day. But seeing that you need spirit tablets more, we discussed and exchanged them for spirit tablets. Lu Chen nods. Although this group of people is unfamiliar with him, in order to help him, they did their best. Whether it is to protect Earth or not, in short, this friendship, Lu Chen will remember it. But in the future, with the herb garden, we can refine pills ourselves. It can be considered as having a more stable income. Lu Chen smiles slightly. He wants to go down the herb garden, in fact, this is also his purpose. Oh, by the way, Lu Chen, there are still 40 loose immortal servants outside. Longevity gave them to us along with the medicinal garden. However, they may not be willing to acknowledge us as their masters. After all, we don't have any true immortals here. Lu Chen thought about it. Such a big herb garden needed people to take care of it, and these people were necessary. I'll go ask them. After saying that, Lu Chen walked out of the 9 Stars Immortal Cave. There are 40 loose immortals standing in front of the cave entrance. When they see Lu Chen come out, they immediately become nervous. Fortunately, Gu Yan and the others had also come out. These people were familiar with Gu Yan. After all, they had worked together in the herb garden for a few years and were usually bullied by Sang Li and the others, so their relationship was quite good. Seeing that these people were nervous, Gu Yan stepped forward and said, "Everyone, don't be nervous. We've all been bullied by Sang Li before. I promise that I won't make things difficult for you." With Gu Yan's words, everyone let down their guard. After helping Lu Chen ease the situation, Gu Yan looked at Lu Chen, indicating that he could ask the questions. Lu Chen looked at these people. Many of them were wrapped in bandages. He could already imagine that these people used to have a similar status as Gu Yan. "Seniors, I'm solipsistic." Lu Chen stepped forward and cupped his fists. Level, Human King Realm. Everyone immediately went into an uproar. Really, Human King Realm? I heard you mention it when you were talking to Longevity Immortal Master. Could it be true? Human King Realm. Why would there be a Human King Realm in the 7th heaven? A mortal? How could a mortal reach the 7th heaven? Faced with all these questions, Lu Chen only smiled faintly and revealed half of his badge. I'm indeed Human King Realm. I'm also the criminal you're talking about. When I was undergoing tribulation in the 6th heaven, something happened. However, that's not the main point. Next, I want to ask if you're willing to stay and help us take care of the herb garden. This is really Human King Realm. An old man revealed a difficult expression. Thank you for being honest with us. However, I've never heard of a rogue immortal recognizing a mortal as his master. Therefore, I'm afraid we won't recognize you as our master. Lu Chen still had a smile on his face. I don't need you to recognize me as your master. You don't need me to recognize you as my master. Lu Chen nodded. Immortal Master's actions have nothing to do with me. What I'm asking is if you're willing to stay and help me take care of the herb garden, not if you're willing to recognize me as your master. This Qinyu herb garden is quite big. My friend's manpower is limited and definitely can't take care of everything. Therefore, I need more people to help. As for the people who stayed behind to help, Senior Gu Yan, just give them the usual remuneration. Don't give them 1 spirit tablet a year. We don't have any extra spirit tablets, so just take 20% of the harvest that each person is in charge of. Gu Yan's eyes widened. 20%. That's much more than the remuneration that Longevity gave before. Lu Chen's expression was indifferent. Longevity is longevity, we are us. These people who were chosen to work in the herb garden should be skilled in taking care of herbs. With this skill, they are the talents that we need. If there is no one to take care of the herb garden, it will still be abandoned. Whoever takes care of it well will receive more remuneration. This is very reasonable. Hearing Lu Chen's conditions, everyone was in disbelief. 20% of the herb garden's harvest? Even Sang Li and the others' income was far from that. One had to know that in the past, not only did the herb garden belong to the Longevity Immortal Master, but they also belonged to the Longevity Immortal Master. Being paid was already good enough. Commission? That was something that they didn't even dare to dream of. However, when it came to Lu Chen, it actually became real. You're really willing to give us 20%? The old man asked in shock. It was as if he couldn't believe what he heard with his own ears. Lu Chen said with a smile, I always keep my word. No, whether you keep your word or not doesn't depend on your mouth. You must sign a contract. Ah. Sign a contract? How? Lu Chen was confused. Once we acknowledge a master, a contract will naturally be formed. Sir, you must specify this point in the contract. This. I don't think so. Didn't you say that they won't acknowledge a master? Lu Chen didn't want to acknowledge a master himself. At the same time, he didn't want others to acknowledge him as their master. He could only accept weapon spirits and battle pets. Following a bunch of underlings was actually quite troublesome. Lu Chen, even a true immortal master, doesn't mind having too many underlings. Gu Yan whispered to Lu Chen. You should know that the weakest of your underlings are itinerant immortals. Lu Chen suddenly looked at Gu Yan. I don't want that. How about this? They acknowledge you as their master. Ah. Gu Yan had been seriously suggesting this, but when Lu Chen suddenly pushed it out, he was shocked. Acknowledge me as their master? Yes. Lu Chen suddenly realized that he was a genius. Since you are familiar with them, it will be easier for you to communicate. Moreover, you are also an itinerant immortal. It will be better than a mortal like me. This, but my strength. Gu Yan hesitated. Lu Chen smiled and looked at Gu Yan. Whoever dares to touch you, they will have to ask me first. Gu Yan finally saw the light. Acknowledging him as master and acknowledging Lu Chen as master was actually the same. Alright, then it's settled. Senior Gu Yan, I will leave the rest to you. I will go and see what I can get. Robbing feels so good. Lu Chen muttered as he returned to the cultivation room. Gu Yan looked at Lu Chen's sloppy back and couldn't help but laugh. Still not admitting it. You already said that it was a robbery. Chapter 1206. Lu Chen now had more than 1,000 spirit tablets. For the second piece of equipment, he naturally chose the 9 transformations of gods and demons. I finally extracted it. Lu Chen let out a sigh of relief. The God and Demon set is really ridiculously expensive. There were still 160 to 70 spirit tablets left. Lu Chen thought for a while and tried to extract some other techniques. 9 Steps of the Void was more expensive, using 150 tablets. 7 Stars Chasing the Moon was much cheaper, only requiring 15 tablets. And Fierce Tiger Descends the Mountain only required 5 tablets. It was simply too cheap. Let's extract these 3 first. 2 movement techniques and 1 support technique. The spirit tablets that Lu Chen had just obtained were gone before he could even warm them. However, Li Shang and the rest had already exchanged most of the pills for spirit tablets. He should still be able to extract some techniques. I don't know when I can mention Shattering the Void and 1 Sword Piercing the Heavens. There's also World-Destroying 9 Dragons, Heaven and Earth Annihilation. I'm all ears. Triple Door. Lu Chen felt a headache as he spoke. His techniques were not restricted by his profession and their levels were high. Moreover, he still needed to extract the God and Demon set. Even the God and Demon Limitless Sword was not in line. It could be seen how tight the spirit tablets were. There was not much time left. Lu Chen had to race against time. The God and Demon set might take some time. I only have these few techniques now. I feel that there are too many restrictions. Lu Chen shook his head. Suddenly, Lu Chen thought of Sky Pilfer. Senior Sky Pilfer, was the technique that you gave me extracted? Stinky brat, you finally thought of it. Sky Pilfer's voice rang in Lu Chen's mind. You forgot that my previous master was a true immortal. Tell me, was the technique that I gave you extracted? Lu Chen was suddenly enlightened. How could he forget about this? The first condition for the fusion of the Void God Destroying Spear and the Silver Gallbladder was to extract the Silver Gallbladder and the materials. Whether it was the Void God Destroying Spear or the Void God Destroying Spear, they were both items that could be extracted directly. Thinking of this, Lu Chen hurriedly took out the technique. Wait! Sky Pilfer suddenly said. Even if you want to learn, you can't learn it like this. Ah! Senior Heaven Pilfering, then how should I learn it? I've told you about this cultivation method before. Everyone has a different understanding of it, so the power they can unleash will be different. Lu Chen nodded. Heaven Thief had indeed told him about this. Therefore, the main point of this immortal technique is not to learn, but to comprehend. Senior Heaven Pilfer, please enlighten me. Lu Chen said respectfully. Don't call me senior. I am now your weapon spirit. If you want to comprehend this spear art, 2 years is definitely not enough. You need to head to the immortal city to find a space to comprehend immortal arts. Heaven Pilfering said, as the saying goes, immortal techniques comprehend space. There are almost no spirit energy fluctuations in space, so you can't cultivate and increase your spirit energy. However, it can give you enough time to comprehend the technique in your mind. Lu Chen frowned. Just like the illusory formation of the Purple Sky Palace. That's right. However, the illusory formation of the 7th heaven is not enough. In the 7th heaven, there are all kinds of cultivation grounds. Some immortal caves have such places. However, we definitely can't enter the cultivation grounds of other immortal caves. It's better to look for the cultivation grounds of the immortal city. Senior Heaven Pilfering, do you know where it is? It's been too long. I stayed in the 6th layer of heaven for thousands of years. My original master didn't come from the 7th layer of heaven. How many years has it been? I don't remember much about the 7th layer of heaven. Lu Chen was stunned. The original owner of the Void God Destroying Spear was in existence higher than the 7th heaven. If that was the case, it was normal for him to not remember. Just like now, Lu Chen also couldn't remember what equipment would drop from the 1st heaven. In short, there should be some in the immortal city. Don't use the spirit tablets that your clan members exchanged for. Bring them to the immortal city. The spirit tablets can be used as currency. Lu Chen nodded. At night, Li Shang and Jin Luan had already returned. They brought 315 spirit tablets and handed them to Lu Chen. Lu Chen, these were exchanged with those pills. Lu Chen asked, Senior Gu Yan and the others pills, leave it for them. Don't worry. Only then did Lu Chen put away the spiritual tablet. Senior Li Shang, do you know if there are any big immortal cities nearby? Big? How big do you want? Human immortal domain has 3 immortal reverent cities, 8 main cities, 16 high immortal cities, 79. Wait. Lu Chen hurriedly interrupted Li Shang's words. Those with cultivation method spaces have better effects. Cultivation method spaces? Then low-grade immortal cities have them. As for the effects, it's definitely better in big cities. Li Shang said. On the side, Jin Luan thought for a while and said, Li Shang, actually this might not be the case. How could it not be the case? Li Shang said unconvinced, as long as it's a high-grade cultivation space, how could those Sengoku immortal reverends let it go? Li Shang, have you forgotten about Changshu City? Changshu City. Li Shang suddenly remembered, oh right, Changshu City is indeed an exception. Lu Chen, you can go to Changshu City and give it a try. Lu Chen asked puzzledly, what's so special about Changshu City? Li Shang replied, although Changshu City is a low-grade immortal city, this city's cultivation space is very strange. They have a total of 999 cultivation spaces. Each space is not big, but the number of them can be said to be the highest in the 7th layer of heaven. These 999 cultivation spaces are connected to each other. They are in a symbiotic state but also in a state of competition. When the cultivation space opens, 999 people can cultivate inside at the same time. In the middle of these 999 cultivation spaces, there is a cultivation technique testing field. There is a pagoda spirit here and there are 9 true immortal war spirits guarding it. 999 people will challenge at the same time within a set time. The winner will continue to cultivate while the loser's space will be swallowed by other spaces. Of course, it is not really swallowed but the time in this room will be drawn into their own room. Lu Chen listened as if he was listening to a book. After coming to Jiutian for so long, he still had this feeling. In Jiutian, there were all kinds of strange things. Jin Luan said, "Some people say that these cultivation spaces are living things but we do not know if it is true. In short, if you are strong enough, cultivating here is more worthwhile than cultivating in the immortal Reverend City." Lu Chen frowned, "Such a good place, there should be many true immortals who come here to cultivate, right?" "No, those who go to the 1,000 position array are basically all loose immortals." Li Shang added, "Changshu does have many true immortals but they are not here to cultivate, they are here to select their own followers. If you can last until the end, there will be many powerful true immortals who want to recruit you." Lu Chen nodded. It seemed that this was the place he was looking for. "Then I will leave immediately and go to Changshu," Lu Chen said. Li Shang took out 3 teleportation talismans and gave them to Lu Chen. "Lu Chen, our battle strength is too low and we will be a burden if we follow you. These are teleportation talismans, I will mark the location for you. 2 of them are the 9-star Grotto Heaven and 1 is Changshu City. At a critical moment, it can even save your life. But you must remember that almost all true immortals have god-chasing talismans which can track teleportation talismans, so you must not be careless." Lu Chen took the teleportation talismans. "Thank you, Senior Li Shang. I will go then." Chapter 1207. When Lu Chen used the teleportation talisman, he saw a large city not far away. This place was actually the lowest level city in the immortal domain. Lu Chen really did not dare to believe it. There is indeed nothing in the 7th heaven that a teleportation talisman can't settle. Lu Chen shook his head. "I originally wanted to let 10 Wings see the world, but now this guy is also on vacation." As a human, Lu Chen successfully infiltrated Changshu City. The reason why even Lu Chen felt that he had infiltrated was mainly because he was surrounded by all kinds of immortals. As a mortal, he felt somewhat different. The surrounding immortals all had cold eyes, they did not care about other people's matters at all. Becoming an immortal is indeed boring. Lu Chen muttered. Not far away, more than 10 loose immortals clustered around a young man, they became the most lively crowd here. "Immortal Master, this time we will definitely be able to recruit the best loose immortal guest," a tall and thin man said. That young man had an indifferent expression. "That goes without saying, who doesn't want to become the guest of Immortal Master Tianjin? I am just afraid that no one will be able to pass the 3rd level of the trial. I also don't want anyone below the 3rd level. Of course, how can anyone who can enter our magnificent heaven immortal cave be weak?" Once Lu Chen heard them, he knew that they were talking about the cultivation space. As long as he followed them, he would be able to find the location of the cultivation space. Quietly following this group of people, sure enough, not long after, Lu Chen saw a towering building that occupied an extremely wide area. The style of this building was completely different from the surrounding simple buildings, it was more like a towering cliff in the city, split into 2 from the middle. The periphery was jagged rocks of strange shapes. The middle of the crack was about 30 to 40 meters apart. On the 2 sides of the cliff, there were stone houses one after another. The houses were not sealed, there were only half of them, about the same size, there were close to 1,000 of them. Between these houses, there were many vines that connected to each other. In the middle of the 2 sides of the cliff, there was a strange gray tower, it was shaped like a tower, with 9 compartments, 100 meters tall, but there were no decorations or carvings on the outside. It was uneven, as if it was made of natural rock. There were similar vines wrapped around the outside of the tower spirit. What a strange tower. It was Lu Chen's first time seeing such an irregular tower. No wonder people say that there are living things here. These vines are probably the channels that devour the time in each room. However, he was certain that this was the cultivation space that he was looking for. Although this place was grotesquely shaped, it was surrounded by a flat and standard viewing area. At this moment, more than half of the spectators were already seated in the spectator area. It seemed that many people were paying attention to this cultivation method trial. Lu Chen quickly walked towards the cultivation area. Is there anyone else who wants to participate in the cultivation method competition? A middle-aged man shouted from not far away, there are still 49 seats left. This batch will be full soon. Lu Chen hurried over. Brother, I want to participate, 50 spirit tablets. That person didn't even look carefully at Lu Chen and directly quoted the price, 50 spirit tablets. Lu Chen felt his heart ache. He only had about 300 spirit tablets in total. I'll participate. Here are 50 spirit tablets. While Ku Chen was still hesitating, someone beside him had already paid and entered. When Lu Chen saw this, it seemed that he couldn't save this money. He carefully took out 50 spirit tablets and handed them over. Alright, this is your number. There's a map of room numbers in the cultivation area. Don't get the wrong one. Hurry up and go in. It's about to start. That person warned, then ignored Lu Chen and continued to shout, there are still 43 seats left. Those who want to enter the big cave abode, don't miss this opportunity. Lu Chen followed a few people who had entered together and walked in. Before entering the cultivation area, there was a wooden sign on both sides of the path. The sign was arranged according to the wall on both sides, and the number of each room was marked. Lu Chen's room was 101. It was a few levels above the wall on the left. It was an inconspicuous position. The others also found their rooms, and with a movement technique, they moved into their rooms. Lu Chen also jumped into his room. There was only one futon in the room. Half of it was exposed, and the other half was inside the wall. From here, one could clearly see the people in the audience. Outside the room, there were thick vines that crawled all over the wall like creeper vines. Lu Chen walked in front of the futon and suddenly realized that there was a small vine beside the futon. He looked at the vine strangely. There's such a plant in the room? Not long after, someone below said, alright, everyone is here. All 999 cultivation rooms are full. Immortal Masters, please pay attention to the itinerant immortals you admire. The cultivation technique trial is about to begin. All cultivators entering the cultivation room, please take note. When the immortal vines cover the exit of the room, the trial will begin. At that time, all of you will enter the cultivation space at the same time. In the first stage, 1 hour of cultivation here is equivalent to 1 month of cultivation in the outside world. When the immortal vines open, please enter the cultivation tower directly. The cultivation tower has its own space. There is no need to wait for others to challenge you. You must use your own cultivation technique to challenge. Once you use other cultivation techniques, the pagoda will automatically withdraw you. If you succeed in the challenge, you can return to your room to continue cultivation. The effects of the second stage of cultivation technique will be determined by the number of people who succeed in the pagoda. In general, every time the immortal vines in your room devour a vines in another room, the effects will double. Lu Chen finally knew that the little thing beside his futon was so powerful that it could draw time from other rooms. Little guy, you're quite strong. Lu Chen touched the little vine. The little vine actually twisted around a little. It seemed like it liked being touched. Alright, little guy, let's see how far we can go. At this moment, the huge vine outside the door began to wriggle and quickly sealed the open entrance. Lu Chen's room suddenly became dark. The little vine twisted its body and patted the futon. It seemed like it wanted Lu Chen to sit down and cultivate. Lu Chen smiled and sat on the futon. Heaven Stealing spoke, "Lu Chen, the cultivation technique here should be of the same nature as the void god-destroying spear art. You need to comprehend it yourself. The stronger the cultivation technique, wouldn't it be easier to pass the pagoda? Why? Are you worried that the void god-destroying spear art isn't strong enough? Don't worry. I dare say that unless you use the divine demon set, I dare say that no one can come up with a cultivation technique stronger than the void god-destroying spear art. To be precise, the void god-destroying spear art isn't an immortal technique, but a godly skill. Godly skill? So strong. You must be bragging. Then wouldn't your previous master be invincible? Ha 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 ha, what's there to brag about? Of course, the so-called godly skill is on the premise that you have to cultivate to the last stage. Most importantly, it depends on the results of your comprehension. Don't forget, the power of the void god-destroying spear art is determined by your comprehension. My previous master didn't fully utilize the power of the void god-destroying spear art. Furthermore, he only cultivated to the 6th stage. However, that's a bit of a long story. You should focus on what's in front of you and comprehend the 1st stage. Now, learn the 1st stage of the void god-destroying spear art. Then, imagine yourself practicing this move. Try your best to practice this move and see if you can comprehend it. Alright. Lu Chen listened to him and learned the cultivation technique. Then, he started practicing it in his mind. Chapter 1208. The 1st stage of the Void God Slaying Spear, the Void Speed Shadow Spear. According to Sky Pilfer, this move was flexible and flexible. In Lu Chen's consciousness, Lu Chen tried to stab with his spear. It was very ordinary. Damn, what happened to the Speed Shadow Spear? Sky Pilfer suddenly said, if your spiritual energy is not concentrated enough, this move can form a skill astral form. It is impossible to form a skill astral form in a short period of time. But just for this move, your speed is not fast enough, the angle is not tricky enough, and you don't have enough variations. After the Speed Shadow Spear is used, your moves will be exhausted. No, try again. What the hell, you, how do you know about my practice? Lu Chen was shocked. I am the spirit of the God-slaying spear. Our minds are connected. Even if you are using the God-slaying spear, I will still be able to sense it. What's more, you are practicing the God-slaying spear technique. I don't even need to look to know. Alright, I thought you knew everything I was thinking about. That's troublesome. Master, could it be that you are thinking about things that I can't see? Nothing. What was I talking about? Practicing the spear, Lu Chen took a deep breath, concentrated, and stabbed with his spear again. It still doesn't work. Try again. Lu Chen continued to try. When comprehending space, 1 hour was equivalent to 1 month. This was much more exaggerated than the astral illusion array. When a person's mind was highly focused, their concept of time would become blurry. Lu Chen did not know how many times he had stabbed with his spear. This time, Lu Chen stabbed with the Speed Shadow Spear again. The spear was like a stream of light, arriving in an instant. When the spear was about to be exhausted, Lu Chen took another step. He suddenly exerted force on his wrist and the spear was bent almost 90 degrees. Lu Chen suddenly let go and the spear spun in the air. Lu Chen held the spear handle and stabbed with the Speed Shadow Spear again. Not bad. You are starting to look like it. Lu Chen didn't stop practicing. He had already grasped the speed and spirit of the rapid shadow spear, but he still felt that he hadn't reached the level he expected. If the god-exterminating spear art was the so-called divine skill, even the first stage wouldn't only be at this level. Lu Chen continued to study his spear arts. The so-called speed was actually a form of spiritual energy eruption. Only by erupting with terrifying spiritual energy in the shortest amount of time, could one's moves be incomparably swift and violent, catching people off guard. Thinking of this, Lu Chen tried to simulate the process of the spirit core's circulation. This was also thanks to Lu Chen's state of selflessness and the realm of spiritual energy, which allowed him to perfectly simulate the process of spiritual energy circulation in the illusion space. The moment he made his move, he should greatly increase the amount of spiritual energy he released. It should be helpful for this move. Next, Lu Chen began to integrate his spiritual power into his training. After an unknown period of time. This time, Lu Chen thrust out his spear. In the instant he attacked, a terrifying spiritual strength erupted. This spear suddenly became different from before. Its speed couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Even before the afterimage disappeared, the long spear had already pierced straight through. You integrated spiritual energy eruption. You can't be simulating the circulation of the spirit core. Even Sky Thief couldn't remain calm. I can't simulate the circulation of the spirit core, but I can simulate the circulation of spiritual energy in the meridians. Lu Chen said. Good heavens, this is already very terrifying. How was the spear just now? It's a bit different from my previous master's spear arts. My previous master walked the path of dexterity, but you seem to have given up on dexterity and instead pursued speed. Sky Thief said. Lu Chen suddenly realized that this kind of speed-pursuing move wasn't necessarily worse than the direction Sky Thief had suggested. Moreover, it seemed to be more in line with his fighting style. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. Sky Thief, if I continue to comprehend according to the direction I'm good at, will there be a problem? Actually, if you comprehend according to the direction I suggested before, you should be able to master my previous master's moves soon. However, the key to the god-slaying spear art is one's personal comprehension. Therefore, if you feel that this direction is more suitable for you, you can practice according to your own method. Lu Chen nodded. He preferred his own method. What's more, the name of this move was Quick Shadow Spear and not Phantom Spear. Perhaps it was the pursuit of extreme speed. Extreme speed. Even Sky Thief could feel that the move Lu Chen was pursuing now was completely different from the variability pursued by his previous master. At this time, Sky Thief didn't give Lu Chen any more suggestions. After all, if there was a different understanding of the move, then there was no doubt that this was the most critical moment. Lu Chen's god-slaying spear was different from his previous masters. He wouldn't interfere with Lu Chen's own comprehension. Extreme speed required an extreme burst of spiritual power. Lu Chen was confident that his spiritual power was at least stronger than that of a 3-star true immortal. However, the most important part of this move was the timing of the burst of spiritual power. The burst of spiritual power had to be made at the moment of the attack. The second attack had to be completed in one go. After the second burst of spiritual power, the second attack would be strengthened and the speed and power of the second attack would be increased. The third time, the fourth time, if he could grasp the timing of a few tenths of a second, the speed and power of the Quick Shadow Spear art would be greatly increased. However, the later it was, the more difficult it was to continue the attack. This was because the speed of the Quick Shadow Spear art had reached a terrifying level. It was impossible to grasp the timing of the burst of spiritual power. Following this method, Lu Chen continued to practice. Spear art, additional attack, additional attack, additional attack. In Lu Chen's consciousness, Lu Chen was practicing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions of times. Lu Chen's additional attack had increased from 1 spear to a maximum of 3 spears. At this moment, Lu Chen's main body was suddenly awakened by a bright light. The host of the cultivation method trial seemed to be a little excited. Everyone, you have waited for an hour. Now, after the first stage of comprehension, all the trial takers have comprehended their own cultivation method to varying degrees. Then, it is time to test the results of their comprehension. The pagoda is open. All trial takers, please enter the pagoda for the first round of challenges. Lu Chen opened his eyes and saw that the vines in front of his room had been opened. He lowered his head and saw the small vine next to the futon wriggling excitedly. Lu Chen gently stroked the small vine. Little guy, you are quite excited. Did you know that I would bring food back for you? Lu Chen actually had a good impression of this kind of thing that could devour. After all, among his 4 battle pets, 2 of them could devour. Among them, little Furball had added all its talents to devouring. Little guy, wait for me to come back. After saying that, Lu Chen directly jumped down from his room and walked towards the pagoda. Below the stage, an extremely beautiful woman looked at the many loose immortals walking towards the pagoda and slightly frowned. Among the many people, she actually saw a familiar figure. That annoying brat who pestered her for an information card and whose original world only had the last coordinates left. It's him. The woman slightly narrowed her eyes and couldn't help but snort coldly. If I remember correctly, the last protection period of his world only has 2 years left. Chapter 1209. The guardian spirit of the first level of the pagoda, a 5 tribulation itinerant immortal war soul. Lu Chen frowned slightly. He was a little disappointed by the difficulty. However, on second thought, most of the people here were itinerant immortals, and they only used a newly learned technique to fight. This meant that the difficulty was not low. Previously, he had been comprehending techniques in his mind. Now that he finally had a chance to fight, Lu Chen would definitely not miss it. Anyway, there is no time limit for actual combat. I'll use him to practice. Lu Chen clenched the silver guts god-destroying sword and looked at the female war soul in front of him. The war souls that everyone faced should be different. All 999 itinerant immortals entered the pagoda. The pagoda was an independent space, so their trials would not affect each other. As it was only the first level, the trial progressed very quickly. Within 5 minutes, 300 to 400 people had completed the trial. Although they were war souls, these war souls were not weak. The trial takers could only use newly learned techniques, so their strength was greatly limited. Therefore, the passing rate was very low. Many people retreated from the pagoda with injuries. They could only watch helplessly as their meditation rooms were sealed by the vines. From the number of people who had come out, about 1/3 of the people had passed the first level of the trial. After 10 minutes, more than 900 people had left the pagoda. The number of eliminated people had exceeded 600. However, as there were still people who had not completed the trial, the second stage could not begin. Everyone was waiting for the last 100 people to leave the pagoda. After 20 minutes, there were only a few people left in the pagoda. After 30 minutes, among all the trial takers, there was still one person who had not left the pagoda. It's been half an hour, and number 101 is still not out. The crowd was already a little restless. 30 minutes. If he could win, he would have been defeated long ago. Why is it taking so long? That guy is still not out. The beautiful immortal master also frowned slightly. However, his world only has a 2-year protection period, and his strength is weak. Participating in the trial this time might be an opportunity that he exchanged with all his savings over the years. Even if he can't win, he should try his best. She still remembered that this guy was willing to take the last coordinate of his world. That was why she thought highly of him. This person persisted for 30 minutes and won't give up. He is quite courageous. At this moment, inside the pagoda, Lu Chen's rapid shadow spear had already reached the 3rd spear. At this moment, the battle soul could not see Lu Chen's spear shadow clearly. Before he could react, the spear tip was already pressed against his forehead. With a boom, a burst of spiritual chi instantly dissipated, stirring up a gust of wind that blew the war soul's long hair and clothes backwards. However, the aftermath of this spirit chi was not biting cold. Lu Chen had already dissolved the attack and dispersed the spirit chi contained in the move. The fighting spirit stood there, not daring to move. It could only stare blankly at the person in front of it, shaking its head continuously. I can still only use 3 shots. Adding a 4th shot is too difficult. The war spirit stared at Lu Chen and said in a trembling voice, "Friend, can't you just give me a quick death?" Lu Chen was a little surprised. Isn't this a training ground? That means you can practice your skills. The war spirit was speechless. This was a training ground, but the degree of danger here was no different from an ordinary immortal battle. There were still people who were injured, and there were even people who died in the pagoda. Everyone else wanted to win as soon as possible, but this guy actually refused to leave. It's fine if you practiced a few times, but you used me to practice a few hundred times. Isn't that a bit too much? Although I'm just a war spirit, I also have a main body's soul consciousness. Naturally, I have emotions. You clearly know that I can't dodge your spear, but you have to start again every time. Have you ever considered my feelings? You are simply humiliating me. Why don't you just kill me now? Lu Chen widened his eyes. Senior, I don't mean that. I just want to practice more. We have no enmity, and I don't want to kill you. Since you don't want to kill me, then leave. You can leave now. Can't I practice a little more? My spiritual chi has been used up a lot. Actually, I can't practice for much longer. If you continue to humiliate me, I will stand still. Lu Chen sucked in a breath. This war spirit's temper was really bad. It seemed like the other party didn't want to practice with him anymore. There was no point in staying any longer. It was better to leave. After walking halfway, Lu Chen suddenly thought of something. He turned around and asked, "Then, Senior, does this count as me passing?" "Don't call me Senior. Let's go." Lu Chen hurriedly slipped out of the pagoda. When Lu Chen walked out of the pagoda, he realized that he had gone through a long period of high-intensity training. The rapid shadow spear's speed was extremely fast, and when he attacked, he needed to be extremely focused. Coupled with his spiritual chi bursting out time and time again, Lu Chen was really tired. When he walked down the stairs, Lu Chen was in a daze and almost stumbled and fell. Taking a deep breath, Lu Chen woke up. When he looked around, he realized that there were a few hundred trial takers who were comprehending skills with him. They were all gathered there and looking at him coldly. "Hey, kid, you made us wait for you for an hour. Do you know that? It's fine if we waited for you, but those divine masters also had to wait for so long. Trash like you, why didn't you die in the pagoda? Normally, a skill can be decided in a few minutes, but you took an hour. What kind of shameless method did you use to pass? People like you can only make it to the next round at most. Moreover, you spent so much effort to pass the first round. Do you think the divine masters will take a liking to you? Don't be delusional." Lu Chen couldn't be bothered with them. He found a stone step and sat down to rest. In the stands, the beautiful divine master looked at cultivation room 101. The vines actually didn't cover the entrance. This meant that this kid had passed. He actually passed. But he took an hour to pass. I'm afraid he used some trick. His strength is still too weak. Regardless, the first stage of the trial had been completed. According to the results, those who passed could swallow the cultivation time in the other rooms. At this moment, the vines on the walls started to wriggle. From their stems, one could see a ball of light flowing and moving between the vines. Not long after, the vines in the originally sealed room also dispersed, revealing the room once again. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. He discovered that the small vines beside the futons in the rooms had all withered after their spiritual energy was absorbed. What the hell is this? Lu Chen's brows furrowed tightly. Then, he turned his gaze to Cultivation Room 101. The small vines in his room had grown a lot. They wriggled their bodies, looking extremely vigorous. In the second stage, 1 hour is equivalent to 3 months. Trial takers, please enter your room, a staff member shouted. Everyone returned to their rooms. After Lu Chen returned to his room, he looked curiously at the happy small vines in front of him. Hey, little guy, you're growing pretty fast. Don't tell me you'll grow as big as those guys outside in the future. The small vines bent their bodies frequently toward Lu Chen. They looked like they were nodding. It can't be. You can understand me. Lu Chen was a little surprised. It was said that this was a sacred cultivation ground formed by living creatures. Looking at it now, it really was possible. Chapter 12:10. In the second stage, 1 hour was equivalent to 3 months. Sky Thief, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly spoke. Lu Chen, I think the reason why you can't use the fourth spear is because you haven't grasped the astral body skill. Astral body skill? Lu Chen asked. Yes, the Void God Slaying Spear is a materialization technique. In other words, you need to use your body to comprehend the astral body skill. Because it's the body that directly cultivates the astral body skill, the difficulty is very high. You need to continuously use moves to gain enlightenment. My previous master used 20 years to successfully use the Void God Slaying Spear skill. But you don't have to worry. The power of the 3 spears is already beyond my imagination. You just need to practice step by step. How do I do it? Lu Chen asked. In essence, the astral body is to adjust the operation mode of one's spiritual energy and integrate it with one's skills. However, it is very difficult to achieve this point. Most people use a more traditional method, which is to use countless moves and train for years until they become proficient. In the end, the astral body is formed by itself. Lu Chen frowned slightly. The traditional method didn't seem to have a shortcut, but, adjusting the operation of spiritual power? He seemed to have practiced this thing millions of times. When climbing Mount Meru, not only did he have to quickly change the operation of his spiritual power, but he also had to multitask. The difficulty was even more difficult than mastering the astral body skill. Thinking of this, Lu Chen changed the way his spiritual power was released while using the rapid shadow spear. His body and the skill were completely integrated. After a moment, Lu Chen's figure in the rapid shadow spear turned into a stream of light and shot out. Sky Thief, is it like this? Sky Thief didn't reply for a long time. Is it wrong? You learned it? Okay, sorry, I'm a bit tired. I want to rest for a while. Okay, then I'll practice again. A month later, Lu Chen could already use the astral body skill for the 4th time. In the next 2 months, Lu Chen was constantly practicing the astral body skill and the 4th spear rapid shadow spear. 3 months later. Of course, 3 months in the cultivation room was just a short hour to the outside world. The vines outside the door opened again, and the second stage of the trial began. The little vine twisted its body excitedly. Lu Chen patted the little vine and said, "Wait for me to bring you something to eat." Then, he jumped out of the cultivation room. There were only 300 people participating in this trial, but these people still remembered Lu Chen. "Hey, brat, you can finally scram this time," a bearded man said coldly. "This kind of person wants to snatch the immortal master from us. Can you please use your brain?" Lu Chen looked at these people impatiently and said coldly, "Don't worry, I don't intend to fight with you for the immortal master. You guys practice what you want, and I'll practice what I want. We'll mind our own business, but if you guys keep talking here, don't blame me for being rude. Yo, you're still full of energy. Dozens of people suddenly found a reason to vent their anger, and surrounded Lu Chen. I finished the first stage in 3 minutes, and you only came out after an hour. Where did you get the confidence to be so arrogant in front of me? I am a rank 7 loose immortal. If not for the rank 7 heavenly tribulation, would be a true immortal now. Do you believe that I won't kill you right now? It's just a mere 50 spirit tablets. At most, I'll report it again. But I'll definitely let you remember it. Lu Chen frowned. Fighting would lead to expulsion. That would be a huge loss. Those immortal masters were all people who didn't mind things getting out of hand. Seeing the situation here, all of them widened their eyes. Are they going to fight? There's going to be a good show to watch. In the past, we've often encountered this kind of situation. Those who can survive the first stage of the trial are all people with decent strength. There should be something to watch. That's good too. Only in this kind of private fight can we see their strength. When the time comes, we'll take in a few good ones. The beautiful immortal master frowned slightly. The person who was surrounded in the middle was precisely that brat from Earth. This brat's strength is not good, but his ability to cause trouble is not small. In this kind of situation, if no one helps him, he might be beaten to death. But speaking of which, being surrounded by dozens of people, I don't see any fear on his face. This brat's courage is indeed outstanding. At this moment, Lu Chen suddenly shouted loudly, "Manager! Someone wants to fight here." When the beautiful immortal master heard Lu Chen's shout, she almost vomited a mouthful of blood. What happened to his courage and courage? Why did he instantly turn into a coward? Immediately, someone walked over and sized up Lu Chen in astonishment. There were many fights here. Normally, they would just watch. Only this brat actually took the initiative to snitch. However, since he had already shouted, they couldn't just ignore it. They want to beat me. Lu Chen said, "Let me make this clear first. It's them who want to beat me. If I passively retaliate, you can't disqualify me." That staff member held back for a long time. He had never dealt with this kind of emergency before. Other than comprehending techniques, the people who came here mainly hoped that they would be chosen by a good immortal master. What kind of loose immortal does the immortal master like? Obviously, it would not be this kind of person who would admit defeat before even making a move. In the past, even if there was a fight, it would be impossible to pull them apart. In the end, this person was different. 101. Do you know that those who are watching the trial are all immortal masters? The immortal masters should be more willing to see your true strength. Lu Chen said, "What does it have to do with me? These spirit tablets were all earned by Li Shang and the rest through hard work. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was their hard-earned money. Not a single one can be wasted. He definitely cannot waste 50 spirit tablets because of his impulsiveness." As for whether the immortal masters are immortal masters or not, Lu Chen had never considered it. Are you going to interfere or not? Or are you going to casually beat me? If you are going to casually beat me, then don't disqualify me. That person sighed. Encountering such a troublemaker, he was also at his wit's end. Even if he made the immortal masters unhappy, if they encouraged private fights, then this place would not be a cultivation room but an immortal battle arena. Alright, stop causing trouble. The second round of the trial is about to begin. If you don't want to miss the trial, quickly enter the pagoda. When these people heard the steward's words, they all gnashed their teeth but did not dare to make a move. You coward. If you are afraid of death, then beg for mercy. Lu Chen snorted coldly. Afraid of death? I am afraid that you all will die. Arrogant. Despicable. Shameless. The group of people were already gnashing their teeth in hatred. Lu Chen snorted coldly and swaggered into the pagoda under the extremely hateful gazes of these people. The second level of the trial had an even higher elimination rate. Out of 300 people, only 70 passed. And all those who passed were still waiting in front of the pagoda because there was still one person who had not come out. 3 hours had passed, and number 101 still had not come out from the pagoda. It's that brat again. This time, he will definitely die in there. There were many spectating immortal masters present. Waiting for these itinerant immortals to cultivate had only taken 2 hours, but waiting for Lu Chen to complete the trial had taken 4 hours. It's been 4 hours. What is that brat doing in there? Since when can you pass the pagoda just by spending time? What the hell is going on? 4 hours later, Lu Chen walked out of the pagoda, exhausted. Almost at the same time, everyone looked towards Cultivation Room 101. The vines there did not seal the room. No way, he passed again. The beautiful immortal master was not calm this time. What the hell is this brat doing? Chapter 12:11. The small vine in Lu Chen's room had grown even thicker. Lu Chen touched the vine. What exactly are you? You actually have the ability to control time. In the third stage, 1 hour was equivalent to 1 year in the outside world. This was probably the first time Lu Chen had spent so much time comprehending a technique. Lu Chen wasn't in a hurry to practice the second stage. Instead, he repeatedly strengthened the rapid shadow spear. In this 1 year, Lu Chen couldn't remember how many times he had shot out the spear in his mind. After mastering the astral form, the number of times Lu Chen shot out the spear increased from 4 to 6. 6 spears. After being continuously strengthened by spirit power, the speed of each spear was twice as powerful as the previous one. 6 spears was Lu Chen's current limit. Just as Lu Chen was about to comprehend the second stage of the god-slaying spear, the vines dispersed. The third trial had begun. From the past, only a very small number of people could pass the third trial. Once they passed the third trial, it meant that a large number of immortal masters would recruit them. It could be said that those powerful immortal masters had waited here for a few hours just for this batch of people. Lu Chen also used 4 hours for the third trial. When he came out of the third level of the pagoda, he realized that including himself, only 7 people had passed. Those people had waited until they lost their temper. Anyway, this kid would snitch whenever they threatened him. However, when they saw the vines in room 101 start to devour the vines in the surrounding rooms, they already felt that something was wrong. How could a person who had used all his strength to pass the first level survive the third level? The immortal masters below the stage were also discussing spiritedly. How did that kid pass? He actually passed the third trial. If I remember correctly, the third trial's battle soul was already a 9th tribulation scattered immortal's battle soul. A 9th tribulation scattered immortal's strength is already very terrifying. Before the tribulation, they were all battle-hardened overlords. There shouldn't be any loopholes for him to exploit. The beautiful immortal master narrowed her eyes as she sized up the exhausted Lu Chen. Every time this guy came out of the pagoda, he looked exhausted. It seemed like he had gone through an intense battle. But when he thought about it carefully, he realized that the others who came out, regardless of whether they passed or not, had different degrees of injuries on their bodies. It wasn't obvious on the first floor, but the opponents on the second and third floors were too strong. This point was very obvious. Why aren't there any wounds on his body now? This question would probably have to be asked to the kid face to face. At this moment, one of her bodiless celestials asked, "Celestial Master Ling Long, these 7 people have great potential. Someone has already gone down to recruit them. Should we wait and see if anyone can pass the 4th level of the trial?" Ling Long asked indifferently, "How many people have decided to participate in the 4th trial? It seems like there are only 2 of them." One is the last person to leave the pagoda, and the other is, a true immortal. Even a true immortal is here. Well, it seems like he obtained some kind of cultivation technique and wants to comprehend it. Although there were a few true immortals who came to Changshu City's cultivation room, it did not mean that there were none. This time, there was a true immortal participating. Ling Long was not interested in that true immortal. Instead, she asked about Lu Chen's situation. That bodiless immortal kid wants to challenge the 4th level. Doesn't he know that the battle soul on the 4th level is a true immortal's battle soul? If he is not careful, it is very likely that he will die in the pagoda. I believe that the people in Changshu City should have already told him. The bodiless immortal guest said. Oh. Things are starting to get a little interesting. The corner of Ling Long's mouth raised slightly. I only plan to recruit one guest. Even if the others recognize a master, they can only be considered as ordinary forces in Ling Long's cave. I am a little interested in that kid. Let's wait and see first. At the same time, Lu Chen realized that among the people who had passed the 3rd level with him, 5 of them had already left the trial grounds. They seemed to have left with a few true immortals. Previously, someone had already come to ask Lu Chen if he wanted to continue participating in the trial and explain the dangers he would encounter if he continued to cultivate. However, Lu Chen chose to continue cultivating without hesitation. These 50 spirit tablets must be used to their fullest potential. In the 4th level, 1 hour was equivalent to 2 years. Out of the 999 people participating in the trial, only Lu Chen and 1 other person were left. The 2 of them entered their respective cultivation rooms at the same time. At this time, the small vine beside Lu Chen's futon had already grown to the size of those huge vines that covered the entire rock wall. Even the narrow cultivation room had become more crowded than before. Lu Chen did not mind and patted the vine. Little thing, looks like you ate a lot. You have grown so big. This time, Lu Chen chose to comprehend the 2nd stage of the God-slaying spear, reverse soul roaming dragon thrust. This spear was also a single-target attack. Its power was huge, but it was very different from the rapid shadow spear. This was a backhand technique. When used at the right time, one could instantly block and counterattack at the same time. Hence, this technique required one to react instantly when the enemy attacked, defending and attacking at the same time. This was Lu Chen's first time encountering such a technique. Unfortunately, in the imaginary space, Lu Chen could only practice this technique continuously. He could not perfectly display the power of reverse soul roaming dragon. After all, he could simulate his own state but not the enemy's. In a year's time, Lu Chen kept repeating the same movements and practiced reverse soul roaming dragon tens of thousands of times. He had mastered the technique itself. However, because there was no opponent to fight, Lu Chen could only put down the 2nd stage and start cultivating the 3rd stage. Heaven's Fury Spear. AoE technique. Lu Chen immediately became interested again. I quite like the name. Reverse soul roaming dragon must continue to improve in actual combat. Then I will practice this first. This Heaven's Fury Spear required the full explosion of all the spirit energy in his body. The difficulty of cultivating it was several times higher than the previous 2 stages. Even if it was just an imaginary state, every time Lu Chen practiced it, he would be exhausted and would need a long time to recover. This technique consumes too much energy. It almost doesn't lose to Heaven's Burning Earth Fire. However, Heaven's Burning Earth Fire was a technique and Heaven's Fury Spear was only a spear technique. It was not difficult to imagine how terrifying the power of this technique would be when Lu Chen mastered it. However, even if Lu Chen had not been lazy, Heaven's Fury Spear had not been mastered. I have already unleashed all my spirit energy. Why is it difficult to continue halfway? Could it be that my 80 million spirit energy is not enough? Lu Chen frowned. Lu Chen, this technique is not urgent. Even my original master spent 100 years to master it. Heaven Pilfer said. Lu Chen said, no, I feel that I am just lacking a feeling. Give me a little more time and maybe I can master this technique. No, I am talking about 100 years. In fact, my original master often went to the cultivation space to cultivate. If you count this time, it has been 100 years, Lu Chen took a deep breath. If it was such 100 years, then it might actually be thousands of years. Lu Chen, I know you are anxious. Earth still has 2 years of protection, but some things can't be learned in a hurry. Heaven Pilfer said earnestly, you have encountered a bottleneck. At this time, you can't be too anxious. Lu Chen took a deep breath. I know. Forget it. I am about to break through the 4th level. I will see the situation after that. Chapter 12:12. That true immortal and Lu Chen exited the cultivation room at the same time. At this moment, only these two people were left on the stage. The organizer's manager walked in front of the two and cupped his fists towards the true immortal, Immortal Lord Qi Hua. Previously, someone reported that there might be someone cheating in the Tower of Trials, so this trial, can it be conducted openly? The true immortal glanced at Lu Chen and smiled contemptuously, I don't care. Since the true immortal has no objection, then it's decided. Lu Chen stood at the side, his brows knitted together. They didn't even ask for his opinion. The status of an itinerant immortal was really too low. That staff member walked to the front of the pagoda and placed a talisman paper on the vines that wrapped around the pagoda. That talisman paper quickly dissipated. Then, the vines wriggled and the first 3 levels of the pagoda suddenly shrank into the ground. The vines extended outwards, forming a large circle. Not long after, an empty field was circled by the vines. That true immortal sneered at Lu Chen and walked into the circle, I'll go first. After this round, I'll also leave. Yes, Immortal Lord Qi Hua, please. Lu Chen also wanted to follow in but was stopped by the staff member, wait a moment. Isn't it mutually unaffected? Lu Chen asked. This is an open trial now, 1 person 1 round. That person said impatiently and ignored Lu Chen. The 4th level of the Tower of Trials was guarded by a 5 tribulation 3-star true immortal battle soul. Although Qi Hua was also a true immortal, he could only use 1 cultivation technique after all, his strength was greatly reduced. In order to avoid being passive, Qi Hua attacked fiercely. 7 swords were by his side, the sword moved according to his heart, attacking wave after wave. This Qi Hua should be 5 stars. Someone below the stage was discussing, the Moonlight 7-star sword art is really exquisite, both offensive and defensive. Qi Hua's comprehension is also extremely thorough, basically displaying the power of the first 4 moves. The results of the immortal battle of Qi Hua are pretty good as well. 5 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Only, he lost to true immortal Heaven North. He was even able to tie with true immortal Mountain Ape. That's right. Qi Hua seems to have only entered the 7th heavenly layer in the past 100 years. This kind of growth speed can be considered one of the best in the human immortal domain. When true immortal Ling Long saw Qi Hua's performance, she nodded slightly. Although Qi Hua is only a 5 tribulation true immortal, his perception and combat skills are excellent. His true strength should not be limited to transcending a level 5 tribulation. Her loose immortal subordinate asked, Immortal Master Ling Long, in your opinion, can true immortal Qi Hua pass the 5th level? Ling Long thought for a while and said, he should be able to pass this stage. However, the fighting soul for the next stage is a 6 tribulation 5-star true immortal. Whether it is the strength of the Moonlight 7 stars sword technique or his strength, it is not enough for him to pass the next stage. Ling Long's eyes were indeed sharp. This time, after Guan Qi Hua held on for more than 10 minutes, there were already a few wounds on his body. Fortunately, it was a thrilling victory in the end. There was a round of applause from below the stage. Although true immortals were emotionless, it was precisely because of this that they respected strength more. Chi Hua's performance was remarkable and had already received the recognition of many true immortals. "Hey, it's your turn," that staff member said coldly to Lu Chen. Lu Chen stepped into the arena. His opponent's level was the same as true immortal Chi Hua's opponent, a 5 tribulation 3-star true immortal. Even if it was a fighting soul, the other party looked at Lu Chen with disdain. The fighting soul suddenly said, "A mere loose immortal, do you know the consequences of challenging a true immortal?" Lu Chen looked at the fighting soul. He was quite disappointed just now. The 4th level was only a 5 tribulation 3-star true immortal. Moreover, it was only a fighting soul. "I don't know," Lu Chen said. "A loose immortal challenging a true immortal is an offense. I will not show mercy." Lu Chen nodded and said. "Oh." All of a sudden, Ling Long burst into laughter. Immediately, Ling Long was extremely embarrassed. As a true immortal, she actually did such an action that did not match her status. It was really improper. But that guy's expression that deserved a beating was seriously too funny. The fighting soul warned sternly, "What did his light O mean?" "Immortal master." The subordinate also looked at Ling Long with some surprise. Forget about seeing the immortal master hold back a laugh. Following Ling Long for so many years, it was rare to see the immortal master smile. Ling Long coughed a few times in a low voice, "Cough cough, what are you looking at me for?" Watch him clear the stage. "Yes, immortal master, the reason why the organizers wanted to make the trial public, needless to say, was because of Lu Chen." Many people doubted how Lu Chen cleared the first 3 levels. In order to dispel everyone's doubts, they made the challenge public. At this time, everyone's gazes were focused on the arena. "I want to see if he really has the ability or just bluffing his way through." The group of itinerant immortals who had previously clashed with Lu Chen also came to the spectator area, looking coldly at the arena. "Stinking brat, don't die in the arena. When you're done, we'll take care of you." At this time, the true immortal fighting soul slightly narrowed his eyes. This itinerant immortal did not have the slightest respect for him, and this alone was enough to make him burn with anger. "You really ate a bear's heart and a leopard's guts. Today, I'll kill you in front of everyone." Lu Chen pulled out a pure black spear from the void and twirled it in front of him. The fighting soul has inherited the soul consciousness of the master. "Seeing how arrogant you are, your master is not much better." "That's fine, ordinary battles are not of much help to me. Bring out your full strength, let's see if you can hurt a hair on my head." When these words came out, everyone was shocked. This guy is really arrogant to the extreme. Not far from Ling Long, a true immortal said fiercely, "Kill him. This is an open trial. If he dares to use any special methods, I'll be the first to disagree." Ling Long also did not expect that this seemingly silly guy would be able to say such arrogant words. This completely overturned her understanding of this guy. Wasn't that guy very cowardly just now? Ling Long's subordinates were also very surprised. Ling Long shook her head, "Maybe we all misjudged him. Let's wait and see." At this time, the true immortal fighting soul was completely enraged by Lu Chen, and the large saber in his hand was already slashing towards Lu Chen. "How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Go to hell." Domineering divine saber, mountain river destruction. Facing the true immortal fighting soul's killing move, Lu Chen held the long spear in his hand and narrowed his eyes slightly. However, his whole body was like a boulder, not moving an inch. Is that guy crazy? Why isn't he attacking? Ling Long's eyes widened. I've already said that he was opportunistic before. Now that I see it, he can't avoid this saber at all. However, at the moment when the saber was about to hit Lu Chen, the black spear suddenly moved. Inverse Soul Roaming Dragon. After the sound of metal colliding, the mountain river destruction was directly deflected, and at the same time, a sharp cold light pierced the true immortal fighting soul's forehead. So fast. How did he break the move? There were already many true immortals around who could not help but stand up. One move to break the opponent's skill, and at the same time, he could take advantage of the opportunity to attack. What kind of spear skill was this? However, after the deity-slaying spear touched the true immortal fighting soul's forehead, it did not continue to stab. Lu Chen's figure moved quickly, and he changed his move to break the inverse soul roaming dragon's attack. Standing behind the true immortal fighting soul, he said coldly, "I told you to use all your strength. Didn't you want to kill me? You don't think that you can kill me with this, do you?" Again. Chapter 12-13. Tyrant God Saber, Sun and Moon return together. Clang, counterattack. Again. Tyrant God Saber, Heaven and Earth Brilliance. Clang, counterattack. Lu Chen withdrew the reverse soul roaming dragon's attack and appeared beside the war spirit in a blink of an eye. He said lightly, "Your Tyrant God Saber is too weak. Change to a more powerful immortal technique." Again. The war spirit's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he shouted angrily, "You, don't be too arrogant. You want an immortal technique? I'll fulfill your wish. Immortal technique, Saber Ancestors 3 Realms." Immortal techniques were indeed extraordinary. At this moment, the entire training ground was rumbling as it was shaken by the surging spiritual energy. However, this was the immortal region after all. The weakest people here were itinerant immortals. The training ground was definitely protected by a defensive array. Otherwise, it would have been destroyed when true immortal Qi Hua started his training. The war spirit saber swept over. Lu Chen noticed that the spiritual energy contained in this move was actually very mysterious. The spiritual energy was surging, but it was not released. It should be waiting for the last moment to explode with great power. Could the reverse soul roaming dragon block such a powerful attack? The blocking of the reverse soul roaming dragon was different from that of the void guarding. The void guarding directly took the attack head-on, but the reverse soul roaming dragon blocked with little effort. Because of this, as long as the timing was right, immortal techniques could also be blocked and counterattacked. This move is a little challenging. Lu Chen's lips curled up slightly. There was finally some light in his eyes. Sure enough, when the saber was in front of him, the broad-headed saber suddenly exploded with terrifying spiritual energy. Not bad. Lu Chen's eyes widened, revealing a look of excitement. Just as Lu Chen was about to use the reverse soul roaming dragon, suddenly, the saber actually split into 3 right before his eyes. The 3 sabers, carrying the power of thousands of caddies, whistled over. Ling Long actually felt her heartbeat quicken. She was not concerned about Lu Chen's comfort, but the change in the 3 realms move was too sudden. The attack of the 3 realms is already very terrifying. It can be considered a powerful saber technique among the immortal techniques. To think that it can create 3 moves in one saber, that's equivalent to tripling its combat power. In actual combat, the 3 forms in one saber should be able to be freely used. However, in this training ground, the fighting spirit saw that the brat had waited until the last moment to make his move. Hence, it deliberately did not use this characteristic in the beginning. Only at the last moment did it suddenly attack. I wonder if that kid can still take it. At this moment, Lu Chen shouted, "Reverse soul roaming dragon. Rapid shadow spear." Lu Chen made use of this opportunity to launch an attack. His entire body quickly merged with his technique, transforming into a star and piercing straight at the battle soul. The 3 realms has been broken. That brat's reverse soul roaming dragon could break through any skill. What? All the true immortals in the stands stood up and they watched in shock. Ling Long also stood up in shock. That brat is prepared. He has already seen through the differences between the three realms. What's more frightening is that he actually changed the reverse soul roaming dragon's counterattack to the rapid shadow spear. Lu Chen's rapid shadow spear was fast to the extreme. The speed of the first spear was already extremely fast. However, the battle soul's reaction was also extremely fast. He hurriedly used his movement technique to try and dodge. Illusionary steps. Suddenly, Lu Chen's rapid shadow spear was twice as fast as before. It almost caught up with the battle soul's movement technique. D****, what kind of spear technique is this? The battle soul angrily shouted, Saber Ancestor Qian Xing. In an instant, the battle soul's figure disappeared. It was actually the movement technique astral body. His speed increased explosively. Lu Chen was now unable to use the divine devil astral body. If he wanted to catch up with the battle soul, he could only increase his speed again. The third spear, the fourth spear. The fourth spear, the rapid shadow spear, was so fast that even the afterimage could not be seen clearly. Suddenly, the crowd heard a scream. Following that, two figures appeared from the rapid movement. Lu Chen's spear pierced the battle soul's calf joint. The battle soul could not stand steadily and directly fell to the ground. After rolling for dozens of meters, he crashed into the vines at the edge of the arena. Only then did he stop. The group of genuine immortals were already stunned. My God, that is a rare displacement astral body. That guy actually directly hit the battle soul out of the displacement astral body. I only heard that the displacement astral body's speed can restrain the skill astral body. When did the skill astral body catch up with the displacement astral body? Is he still human? Ling Long's eyes widened. Ever since she came to the seventh heaven celestial realm, this was the first time she was so shocked. What level of itinerant immortal is that kid? Could he be a 9 tribulation itinerant immortal? But even a 9 tribulation itinerant immortal cannot reach the level of crushing a genuine immortal. I can't even see his spear clearly. At this moment, the one who was the most devastated was the battle soul. Saber Ancestor's 3 realms had been broken and he had used the displacement astral body. However, he was still forcibly hit out. This was really something that he could not defeat or run away from. The most terrible thing was that guy had just used the handle of his spear to stab him. His intention could not be more obvious. That guy did not intend to cripple him and was afraid that he would be injured. This obviously meant that he wanted to do it again. Suddenly, the battle soul had a feeling that he was on the verge of collapse. It seemed that he had provoked a terrifying existence that he could not get rid of. Sure enough, number 101 was shaking his head and walking slowly towards him. I actually caught up with the fourth spear. After all, it was just consciousness training. After all, it was still a little lacking. I feel that I need to practice the speed shadow spear more. Hey, are you okay? Need to practice the speed shadow spear more. What are you doing? You have already won. I am warning you, you don't come over. The battle soul wanted to hide, but it was a pity that he was already at the edge of the arena. Why are you so afraid of me? I will not hurt you. Hey, your displacement astral body was really beyond my expectations. It was really not bad. Lu Chen was pleasantly surprised. This was the first time that he had encountered a displacement astral body. Its speed was really fast. After being praised by Lu Chen, the battle soul was not happy at all. Come, I will help you up. Don't come over. Don't be so distant. Didn't you want to kill me? How can you give up so quickly? How did you become an immortal? The war soul had a stupefied look on his face as Lu Chen forced him to stand up. Now, he looked at Lu Chen with fear in his eyes. What kind of monster was this? I held back just now. You should be fine. Let's practice again. Do you have any more powerful immortal skills? Oh, I know. You are afraid that if you show your strength, your master will be at a disadvantage in the immortal battle. It's okay. Let's practice the Saber Master's 3 realms and the Saber Master Qian Xing's astral body a few more times. The battle soul was forced to attack again. After 20 hours, the battle soul's lower limbs were a little weak. He did not use the saber, saying that he could not lift it. Lu Chen allowed him to not use the saber and just practice. However, there was also a request. The Saber Master Qian Xing had to do his best. We have practiced for a day. I can't practice anymore. The battle soul looked at Lu Chen with grievance. This guy did not seem to have any intention of stopping. It was too scary. Has it been a day? Lu Chen had forgotten that they had practiced for so long. Anyway, his attack did not really explode, and his spiritual power was almost not consumed. 80 million spiritual power points was enough for him to practice for decades. He was indeed a little tired, but perhaps he was too focused, he did not feel anything. I don't want to inject spiritual power into the Saber Master's 3 realms anymore. But I am tired. Can't you overcome it if you are tired? I don't want to overcome it. The battle soul choked and almost burst into tears. He, a genuine immortal battle soul, had been humiliated for more than 20 hours. Chapter 12-14. The war soul expressed his determination to refuse to cooperate. As for him saying that he wanted to kill Lu Chen, he had already forgotten about it. Now, he only wanted to go home. You really don't want to train anymore? Lu Chen was a little regretful. You only trained for 4 hours at the start, now you have to train for 20 hours. Even if you beat me to death, I won't train anymore. Why don't you just kill me? The war soul said stubbornly. Lu Chen sighed, you have also trained with me for so long, I won't kill you. Forget it, I will go to the next level to take a look. The surrounding group of true immortals had not left yet. They did not know why they had sat here for more than a day just to watch that itinerant immortal train. This is really an eye-opener. That guy bullied the true immortal war soul until he cried. Ling Long's subordinate shook his head and sighed. Ling Long suddenly thought that the war souls on the previous levels were probably in the same situation. No wonder this guy was always the last to come out. It was probably because the war soul could not stand him anymore. Lu Chen had already passed this level. Then, the second question that people were concerned about came. Would he continue to challenge the level? Even true immortal Qi Hua had already given up on continuing the trial. He was just an itinerant immortal, could it be that he wanted to continue? At this moment, Lu Chen had already returned to room 101 and continued to train. My God, he still wants to continue. The war soul on the 5th level of the pagoda is a 6 tribulation 5-star true immortal. At the same time, the news of someone wanting to challenge the 5th level of the pagoda in the trial area spread like wildfire in Changshu City. Have you heard, there is an itinerant immortal, it should be an itinerant immortal. He wants to challenge the 5th level of the pagoda. What? An itinerant immortal 5th level of the pagoda? And an itinerant immortal? Then he must be an extremely powerful 9 tribulation immortal. Quick, inform the immortal master to come to the trial area of Changshu City immediately. It can't be, how many years has it been since someone challenged the 5th level of the pagoda? Even true immortals usually only reach the 4th level. An itinerant immortal actually challenged the 5th level. If it is true, inform the immortal master immediately, we will go over immediately. Oh, the 5th level of the pagoda? If he can pass, I, Immortal Master Wuxia, am willing to recruit him as my #1 guest. For a time, outside Changshu City, Immortal Master level experts suddenly appeared. They must have received the news and teleported here. In a small Changshu city, a large number of true immortal experts suddenly gathered and rushed to the training area. At this moment, only Lu Chen was continuing to cultivate in the entire training area. When he returned to his room, he saw the vines that had taken up half of the room. He smiled and said, "Little guy, you're growing too fast. Move aside and return my futon to me." The vine wriggled, and a tentacle touched Lu Chen's face playfully, making Lu Chen itchy. "Ha ha ha, stop messing around. This time, I can cultivate for 4 years. I want to seize this opportunity and see if I can comprehend the Heaven's Fury Spear." The vine seemed to be very obedient to Lu Chen's words. It moved its body and revealed Lu Chen's praying mat. Lu Chen sat on the praying mat and entered into a state of cultivation. After training again and again, Lu Chen was still unable to completely comprehend the Heaven's Fury Spear. Before it could fully activate, his spirit energy would become chaotic, causing him to have no choice but to stop and adjust. In these 4 years, Lu Chen did not give up. Since the original owner of Heaven Pilfer could learn it, then he would definitely be able to learn it. Just like this, 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. On the last day, Lu Chen did not practice his spear. Instead, he was thinking. What was the problem? Heaven Pilfer said that this move required a vast amount of spirit energy. Could it be that he did not have enough spirit energy? But the reason for the skill's failure did not seem to be due to the lack of spirit energy. Instead, when the skill was released, the spirit energy gushed out too violently, causing him to be unable to control it. A skill that clearly had enough spirit energy but was unable to be activated. This had never happened before. Perhaps only the Void God slaying spear art had such a situation. Heaven Pilfer said that I lack an epiphany. But Earth only has 2 years of protection left. How long would it take for this kind of epiphany to come by? Lu Chen was somewhat anxious. It was obviously impossible for him to wait for an epiphany in 100 years to comprehend this Heaven's Fury Spear art. In order to be able to use this move, he had simultaneously activated Celestial Demon Symbiosis, Celestial Demon Astral Body and other auxiliary skills. Anyway, it was an imaginary state, so there was no problem of drawing it out. But until now, there was still no progress. The spirit energy is gushing out too violently. I can't control it. Lu Chen gritted his teeth. Don't tell me I have to raise the level of spirit energy to be able to comprehend it. Heaven Pilfer suddenly said, "My master's spirit energy is only at the level of spirit energy manipulation." Lu Chen sighed. It seemed that the problem did not lie here. After the end of the last day of cultivation, when Lu Chen came out of the cultivation room, he found that the number of people in the spectator stands did not decrease. Instead, it was several times more than before. Is being an immortal so free? Lu Chen shook his head. This group of people had been watching him cultivate for almost 2 days, but the number of people was still increasing. Before Lu Chen left, the vine wrapped around Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled and patted the vine. It seems like all the spirit energy in the room has been eaten by you. I don't know if you will still be able to eat after winning this time. The vine only intimately slid on Lu Chen's face, as if it was worried about Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled. He did not expect this plant to be able to understand humans. Don't worry, I will be fine. After saying that, Lu Chen jumped down from the rock wall. The staff member changed from his previous indifference and excitedly ran over. Unfortunately, Lu Chen did not give him a chance to get close and directly entered the training grounds. From the 4th floor onwards, the pagoda had changed form. Now that it was the 5th floor, it was still in the form of an arena. He guessed that the staff member wanted to tell him about this. However, Lu Chen did not care. He only wanted to practice more, and he did not care if others saw him or not. In front of him stood a cold-looking man. If he was not a war soul, he was no different from a real person. To be able to see me means that you are very strong. The war soul said coldly. Lu Chen was not in the mood to reply. He took out the god-slaying spear. I have almost mastered the rapid shadow spear and reverse soul roaming dragon, but I have not mastered the heaven's fury spear. Forget it, I don't want you to practice with me this time. Let's end this quickly. Use your strongest move. Lu Chen looked at the war soul of a 6 tribulation 5-star immortal. The strongest move? You are really arrogant. The war soul narrowed his eyes. Alright, I will do as you wish. Immortal level spirit slave Chiyu's soul. With a boom, the spirit energy in the area exploded. The wind and clouds surged. 100-meter-long giant holding a huge axe stood in front of the war soul. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. This time, his opponent was really beyond his expectations. It was actually a spirit master. And what he summoned was actually Chiyu's spiritual body. Suddenly, the war soul burrowed into Chiyu's body. From Chiyu's chest, a third arm grew out. Spirit slave astral constitution. Lu Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. This time, his opponent seemed to be quite strong. Chapter 12-15. The reason why it was said that spirit controllers were stronger was because regardless of whether it was their main body or battle soul, the spirit bodies they summoned were all of the same strength. That was to say, even if the real body of this fighting soul, the 6 tribulation 5-star true immortal, came here and summoned the Chiyu spiritual body, it would be no different from the one Lu Chen was facing now. To put it simply, fighting this war soul was equivalent to Lu Chen facing the true body of a true immortal. The 3-armed Chiyu was faster than expected. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Lu Chen. Immortal technique, splitting heaven and splitting earth axe. At this moment, when faced with the giant axe, a normal person's first instinct was to dodge. After all, the axe was several times larger than a person. However, Lu Chen's expression did not change. He was as immovable as a mountain. The principle of reverse soul roaming dragon was to use 4 tails to deflect 1,000 caddies. No matter how strong the opponent's attack was, as long as he grasped the right timing, he could still use reverse soul roaming dragon to block this attack. Is that guy crazy? That's a skill activated by Chiyo's spiritual body. How could a spirit controller who could transcend the tribulation and become an immortal have a weak spirit pet? Those are all overlord-class spirit bodies. The combat strength of an immortal spirit body like this even surpasses that of a true immortal's true form. Just as the giant axe was about to smash down, Lu Chen suddenly moved. I don't care what kind of spiritual body you have. If I can't even block your attack, how can I destroy a god? God-destroying void spear, reverse soul roaming dragon. Lu Chen held the void god-slaying spear in one hand and swung the spear. The moment it collided with the opponent's skill, a loud boom rang out, and a burst of spiritual energy exploded. The ground beneath Lu Chen's feet cracked. It could be seen that even if Lu Chen dodged the attack, the power of this move was still extremely terrifying. At the same time, Lu Chen injected a large amount of spirit energy into the god-slaying spear. Instantly, a terrifying spiritual force erupted from the spear. With another loud bang, the ground collapsed. But at the same time, the heaven-splitting earth-splitting axe was actually deflected by the reverse soul roaming dragon, slashing past Lu Chen's side. He blocked it. He can even block Chiyo's celestial skill. The crowd watched the battle in shock. For example, many true immortals could not guarantee that they would be able to unleash such a powerful attack. In the end, it was still blocked by the reverse soul roaming dragon. Ling Long muttered, void god-destroying spear. I seem to have heard of this cultivation technique before. Unfortunately, there was no time for her to carefully recall, because Lu Chen had already shot towards Qiyu like a beam of black light. Rapid Shadow Spear. The giant axe slammed into the ground, splitting the earth apart. Fortunately, there was a powerful defensive array around the arena. Only the ground inside the arena had been penetrated, and it did not extend outwards. Lu Chen's attack was simply too fast. Qiyu did not have enough time to retrieve his battle axe. A huge defensive shield appeared around his body. Universal Spirit Shield. The swift shadow spear directly smashed into the spirit shield. Suddenly, a spirit aura ring exploded in the entire arena and crashed into the defensive array. It didn't break. Lu Chen coldly snorted. Seeing that Qiyu was retreating with the help of his soul shield, Lu Chen fired 2 more shots. The third spear, the Rapid Shadow Spear, directly pierced through the heavenly spiritual shield. However, Lu Chen had only broken the shield in the end. He quickly followed up with 2 more shots. The fifth shot, the Rapid Shadow Spear. At this moment, its speed and power had already reached a shocking level. Qiyu's displacement could not avoid Lu Chen's attack. A black shadow flashed past. Not long after, Lu Chen withdrew from the astral state and stood behind the giant Qiyu's spiritual body. He drew a spear flower and withdrew his spear. It was done in one breath. There was a big hole in Qiyu's chest. His arm was covered in blood. After a while, the perfected immortal war soul finally could not bear it and fell out of Qiyu's body. At this moment, there was also a big hole in his chest, but it should not be fatal. He fell to the ground and raised his head to look at Lu Chen in shock. You are really an itinerant immortal? Impossible. Even if your void god-destroying spear is exquisite, it is impossible for you to comprehend it to such a terrifying level. Lu Chen turned to look at the war soul. With a long spear and a sharp sword in hand, so what if they are gods, Buddhas, immortals, and demons? I am me. Why should I envy immortals? The perfected immortal war soul probably could not understand the meaning of Lu Chen's words. However, Lu Chen did not explain. After he finished speaking, he walked down from the arena. The perfected immortals on the arena looked at Lu Chen as if they were looking at a monster. This guy defeated the 5-level spiritual altar guardian war soul in seconds. And he is a spirit controller. He took a few hours to pass previously. Now that he is serious, he passed the level in less than half a minute. What kind of ability is this? This guy, who exactly is he? Ling Long stared blankly at Lu Chen's figure. Was this guy really that ignorant brat? Wasn't his strength a little too terrifying? This guy is totally different from before when he is serious. Not to mention itinerant immortals, even perfected immortals may not be able to defeat him without sufficient ability. But he has only been in the 7th heaven for 4 years. The staff walked shakily to Lu Chen and said carefully, this little brother, do you still want to continue with the next trial? Lu Chen frowned slightly. Do you still need to ask? Of course I want to continue. I have paid for it. The crowd below the arena instantly exploded. He still wants to continue. No way. He wants to challenge the 6th level of the pagoda. Oh my god, how many years has it been since someone challenged the 6th level of the pagoda? 100 years ago, someone did, but that person was a perfected immortal. The next level seems to be a 7 Tribulation 6-star perfected immortal war soul. Is he really an itinerant immortal? What did he mean by what he said to the war soul? Does he not care if he is a perfected immortal? He is definitely not a perfected immortal. After a perfected immortal opens the immortal path, we can all feel it. This guy obviously did not open the immortal path. It's just that his strength is a little too exaggerated. If he really destroys the 6th level of the pagoda, I, Wuxia deity master, may not be able to recruit such a talent, Lu Qin did not care about what the others said. He returned to Cultivation Room 101 and continued to cultivate. Although there was not much progress in the Heaven's Fury Spear, Lu Qin did not give up. He had already thought about it. In these 8 years of cultivation, he would focus on cultivating this spear technique. Practice makes perfect. Who knows, he might have an epiphany as he cultivated. Even if there was no progress, it was actually just a waste of an hour's time. It would be a waste not to do such a business. Moreover, every time he came out, there would be a good opponent to strengthen his skills in actual combat. This was very important to Lu Qin. After understanding the ability of the Void's God-destroying spear, through the War Soul, he could also deduce the ability of a perfected immortal. When he returned to the room, the vines had already occupied half of the room. Lu Qin only had a small space to stay. Lu Qin did not mind and sat down cross-legged. Thinking about the staff's strange question, Lu Qin could not help but feel amused. The cultivation technique trial is like eating a buffet. After spending money, you have to eat it back. Of course, you have to pass the level. Asking me if I want to continue, I don't know what you're thinking. An hour later, on the 6th level of the pagoda, Lu Qin came out to challenge the 7 Tribulations 6-star True Immortal War Soul. From this level onwards, it seemed that he had reached the upper limit of the vine's devouring. The effect of the cultivation room was fixed at 1 hour, which was equivalent to 12 years in the outside world. However, this did not stop Lu Qin from continuing to cultivate. An hour later, on the 7th level of the pagoda, Lu Qin came out to challenge the 8 Tribulations 7-star True Immortal War Soul. Another hour later, on the 8th level of the pagoda, he faced the 9 Tribulations 8-star True Immortal War Soul. At the end of the last hour, when the vines spread out outside Lu Qin's training room, the spectator stands were already filled with people, 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Today, someone would challenge the 9th level of the pagoda. The 9 Tribulations 9-star True Immortal War Soul. Regardless of whether it was the Immortal Master or not, at this moment, in Changshu City, everyone wanted to see this grand battle that had not appeared for hundreds of years. Chapter 12-16. Lu Qin was not in a good mood. He had been comprehending the Heaven's Wrath Spear for decades, but there was no progress. No matter how careful he was, once the skill was about to explode, his spiritual energy would go out of control. He could not remember how many attempts he had made. He had failed time and time again, but he had to pull himself together again and again. He was mentally and physically exhausted. Could it be that I can't master this move after all? I haven't made any progress in that cultivation space for decades. I feel like I'm getting old. Lu Qin shook his head as he walked out of the room. It seemed that comprehending the cultivation technique could no longer help him in his cultivation. At this moment, a staff member ran over, trembling. "Sir, the cultivation technique trial is about to begin." Lu Qin glanced at him and said listlessly, "I know. You don't have to tell me." "No, this trial is different from the previous ones," the staff member said anxiously. Lu Qin was slightly surprised. "What's the difference?" "This time, because the opponent is too strong, you can use other auxiliary methods." Lu Qin frowned slightly. 9 Tribulations, 9 stars. Isn't it just one more star than before? I think the increase in strength at this level is not as much as before. "Sir, it's not like that. Every fighting soul has a different proportion of the owner's soul consciousness. Their strength is also different. Moreover, your opponent this time is not human." Lu Qin looked at the staff member strangely. "Isn't this the human race's celestial realm? Where did this foreign race's true immortal come from? It's not considered a foreign race, but... Sir, do you know what this trial field's original form is?" "I don't know." "The Great Mongol Tree." Ah. The Great Mongol Tree. Yes, the Great Mongol Tree. Each leaf is a world. Those cultivation rooms are actually leaves on the ancient tree. Although this is only a small branch of the Great Mongol Tree, it has the same ability. The staff member continued, Sir's next opponent will be the manifestation of the Great Mongol Tree's consciousness. It can't be. The Great Mongol Tree only has 9 stars. Lu Chen asked doubtfully. No, it's only displaying 1/10 of the strength of a 9th stage 9-star true immortal. It's basically equivalent to a powerful war soul of a 9th tribulation 9-star true immortal. Milord, although the Great Mongol Tree has only displayed the strength of a 9 calamity 9-star true immortal fighting soul, it knows countless martial arts. If it really is a 9 calamity 9-star true immortal fighting soul, it will be one of the strongest. At this moment, it is impossible for you to defeat it with only one martial art. Lu Chen's dull eyes gradually lit up. The stronger his opponent was, the more excited he got. This was a habit he had since he entered Jiutian. One of the strongest. It's a pity that it's only a fighting soul, but at least it's more interesting than the previous ones. I can use other support skills, right? Yes, but you can't use other offensive skills. Lu Chen nodded, then turned around and walked towards the ring. When Lu Chen stepped onto the arena stage, the entire practice area, including the 2 massive stone walls, was completely sunk into the ground. The scope of the arena stage had expanded by more than 10 times. Lu Chen looked back. His practice room had already disappeared. Those small vines should be a part of the Great Mongol Tree. There shouldn't be any danger. Retracting his divine sense, Lu Chen sized up his surroundings. The arena stage had become slightly larger, but there were no other changes. At this moment, there was no one else in the arena except for Lu Chen. Just as Lu Chen was looking for his opponent, several vines stretched out from the ground and intertwined with each other, forming the outline of a human's meridians. They filled the muscles and covered the skin. Not long after, a beautiful woman appeared in front of Lu Chen. After being covered by green leaves, it turned into a long green dress on her body. Lu Chen looked on helplessly as the vines turned into a living person. He blushed slightly. During the process of this woman taking shape, Lu Chen saw many things that he shouldn't have seen. Although he knew that this wasn't a real person, Lu Chen still felt a little embarrassed. He looked back at those spectators. They were all unmoved and calm. Lu Chen sighed. As expected, they were all experienced people. They didn't find it strange. It seemed that there was no hope of finding an immortal companion in the immortal realm. The person opposite him spoke. What, are you shy? No, no. What kind of joke is this? What kind of world have I not seen? Lu Chen straightened his back and said. That woman covered her face and laughed. Yes, one look and I can tell that you are someone who has seen the world. That's why you kept touching my body, right? Lu Chen almost vomited blood. He stared at that beautiful woman. You can't be a small vine. Everything here is a part of my body. What do you think? Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. My goodness, his final opponent was actually the little guy in the room. The woman's eyes were smiling. I don't mind telling you that I know both the Rapid Shadow Spear and Reverse Soul Roaming Dragon. It's impossible for you to win against me. Lu Chen was stunned for a moment. You secretly learned my skills. How is this called secretly learning? I can't learn from you cultivating in your mind. But you passed the 8th level of the pagoda and practiced your spear in my body. I can't not learn even if I don't want to. As she spoke, the woman still had a shy look on her face. Lu Chen stared at the woman. You learned my spear arts just by watching me use my moves. The spirit chi here is all under my control. Since I have figured out the spirit chi circulation of your moves, I naturally know your moves. As for comprehension and whatnot, I have learned no less than thousands of skills. I shouldn't be worse than you. As she spoke, the woman extended a vine from her hand. The vine wriggled and formed the shape of a spear. A moment later, a spear that looked exactly the same as the void god-slaying spear appeared in the woman's hand. I can also imitate your weapon. Lu Chen frowned. If what the other party said was true, then he was afraid that this time he would be in trouble. He could only use support skills and the void god-slaying spear while the other party was not restricted. As for attributes, the primordial Mongol tree should not give it to him. When he fought with the primordial Mongol tree, he did not have any advantage and was completely suppressed. It's been 800 years. You are the first person in these 800 years that I am so interested in. The woman smiled charmingly. Oh, wrong. It should be said that you are the person that I am most interested in these thousands of years. A mere mortal barging into the immortal domain, this is truly unheard of. Isn't that right? The moment these words came out, the entire place was silent. Immortal? What did this mean? There was no need to explain. This number 101 was not even an itinerant immortal. Kid, seeing that you are so good to me, I promise you that if you win, I will give you a special reward. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. The woman quickly kept her smile, but if you lose, then sorry, I will not be merciful. After all, I really want to trap you in my body forever. The corner of Lu Chen's eyes twitched. How was he going to win this battle? His only hope was probably that move that he had never shown before. But he had not comprehended the Heaven's Wrath spear yet. Chapter 12-17. Are you ready? The woman smiled charmingly at Lu Chen. I'm coming. Suddenly, the woman drew her spear. And Lu Chen couldn't be more familiar with this move. It was the first style of his god-slaying spear, Rapid Shadow Spear. The speed of the woman's first spear was not slower than Lu Chen's. She entered the astral state and shot towards Lu Chen. During the attack, she shot 3 more times in a row, reaching the strength of the level 4 Rapid Shadow Spear. This speed was not something the naked eye could capture. If he could not capture the opponent's figure, he could not use Anonymous Dragon Barrier. Divine Demon Heavenly Eye. Lu Chen immediately activated his Heavenly Eye. Reverse Soul Roaming Dragon. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and a ring of spiritual power spread out in the field, hitting the defensive array with a loud bang. Then, the 2 people in the field were blown away at the same time. Lu Chen was directly repelled, and his whole body hit the edge of the vines like a cannonball. The huge impact made him spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. On the other side, the woman only took 2 steps back and stabilized her body, but she did not intend to follow up with another attack. She looked at Lu Chen with interest, who was vomiting blood. You can actually block the 4th Rapid Shadow Spear. It seems that I still underestimated you. Lu Chen finally caught his breath and looked up at the woman. Just now, he did not completely deflect the Rapid Shadow Spear's attack, causing him to be seriously injured. It was not that the second style of Reverse Soul Roaming Dragon was not as strong as the first style, but he did not grasp the best time to attack. Damn it, I can't even block my own skill. Too bad. Lu Chen shook his head. Just as he finished speaking, Lu Chen's figure suddenly burst out, and he had already used the Rapid Shadow Spear. I can't block it, but I don't believe you can. Rapid Shadow Spear. This time, Lu Chen directly increased the Rapid Shadow Spear to 6 spears, and its speed and power increased by several times. In an instant, the Rapid Shadow Spear had already arrived, and the spear directly pierced the woman's heart. A huge amount of spiritual power exploded in her body, and the woman was instantly blown to pieces. After Lu Chen landed, he was in disbelief. It ended so quickly. However, a few giggles suddenly came from behind Lu Chen. The extreme speed that you have comprehended from the Void God destroying spear is indeed very strong. And to be honest, I can only increase it to 4 spears, but you can increase it to 6 spears. This is also very surprising to me. You can't even block 4 spears of the quick shadow spear, so I definitely can't block 6. Since I can't block it, then I won't block it. Lu Qin abruptly turned around and was surprised to see countless thin branches extending from the ground, once again reconstructing the woman's form. You're still alive. Lu Qin said in shock. The woman covered her mouth and laughed. Of course I'm alive. Oh, I forgot to tell you before. Even if my strength is limited to a relatively low level here, you still can't kill me. I am everything here, and vice versa. Everything here is me. Lu Chen's eyes widened. You're cheating. The woman elegantly waved her hand. Little cutie, you're wrongly accusing me. I didn't use the power of the great Mongol tree. I also learned this skill myself. If others can have this skill, why can't I? Lu Chen was speechless for a moment. This woman could learn skills that others had already comprehended when they challenged the tower. This place had existed for who knows how many years, and who knows how many people had comprehended skills here. The number of skills that she had mastered was really innumerable. The woman looked at Lu Chen and smiled. Don't you like to practice more? Then I'll play with you more. Let's see how many skills your reverse soul roaming dragon can block, and whether it can really go against the gods. Immortal technique, heaven and earth root. Countless vines extended from under Lu Chen's feet, crazily grabbing at Lu Chen. Since this woman had already mastered the reverse soul roaming dragon, she naturally knew the weakness of this move. Against powerful single-target attacks, reverse soul roaming dragon was extremely effective. However, against a large number of attacks, although it could block a few attacks, the effect of reverse soul roaming dragon would be severely weakened. Moreover, Lu Chen was currently only facing the siege of the immortal vines. Using reverse soul roaming dragon on these immortal vines was clearly not worth the loss. Lu Chen quickly understood this point and hurriedly dodged using the void technique. However, those vines seemed to have grown eyes and crazily chased after Lu Chen. The way they chased after him was different from Lu Chen's wood-type spells in the past. They did not extend their vines to chase after Lu Chen. Instead, they rapidly extended new vines from the original vines. This way, even if Lu Chen temporarily avoided the attacks, the space that he could move in was getting smaller and smaller. The vines instantly filled most of the space in the entire arena, and they were still chasing after Lu Chen. Lu Chen's eyes widened. If he continued running like this, he would be caught sooner or later. He had to cut off the source as soon as possible. The source was that woman. That woman had already disappeared without him knowing. It was as if she had become one with those vines. After all, this was a piece of cake for her. At that moment, Lu Chen used his spirit energy minute's subtlety and discovered that spiritual energy was gathering at the root of one of the vines. Found it. After saying that, Lu Chen directly shot the rapid shadow spear at the target. With a loud bang, the root of the vines exploded. However, there was nothing unusual there at all. Instead, Lu Chen's desperate attack had put him in a desperate situation. Oh no, I've been tricked. Lu Chen was deeply trapped in a large number of vines. Just as he was about to dodge, his ankle was suddenly entangled by a thin vine. Lu Chen used the sharp blade on the side of his spear to try to jump off the vine. However, the god-slaying spear did not manage to cut the vine that was as thick as a thumb. The woman's voice rang again. Little cutie, if your god-slaying spear was in its complete form, you might have a chance to cut off my vines. Unfortunately, it's not a divine weapon. Don't even think about cutting off these divine vines. Lu Chen really wanted to use the ultimate sword to cut off the vines. However, he held himself back at the crucial moment. He could use support skills, but he could not use any offensive skills other than the god-slaying spear. Be it the rapid shadow spear or the reverse soul roaming dragon, they were not very effective in cutting off the vines. Perhaps that was the reason why the woman had chosen to use this trick on him. The vine on his ankle quickly climbed up Lu Chen's calf and quickly sucked away the spiritual energy in Lu Chen's calf. If he did not break free, Lu Chen would definitely be drowned by these vines. The woman had said that she wanted him to stay, but Lu Chen was not naive enough to think that anything good would happen if he stayed. Fuck, I'm going to be sucked dry by these vines. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. The woman had directly mastered the first two moves of the god-slaying spear. She knew Lu Chen's weak spot as if she was controlling it. Damn it, I'm about to die. Why am I still thinking about the rules? At that moment, Lu Chen really wanted to use the ultimate sword. At that moment, the woman's voice rang again. Do you want to use your other weapon? However, you'll lose if you do that. If you're not obedient, I won't like you anymore. By then, you won't get your reward. Moreover, I won't abide by the agreement that limits my power. Chapter 12:18. Seeing that the surrounding vines were about to grab him, Lu Chen activated the underworld earth fire and swept his spear at the vines. This time, the spear tip successfully cut off the vines. The earth fire was effective. Indeed, fire restrained wood. Lu Chen planned to use the earth fire to clear the vines, but suddenly, the vines that had just been cut off extended new vines and wrapped around his ankles again. Lu Chen attacked again, but this time, he did not cut it off. He had no choice but to hurriedly use the triple door to escape from the vines. Little cutie, you really surprised me. My body is rooted near the star core and is not afraid of fire, but you can actually cut off an immortal vine. It seems that your fire affinity is very high. Unfortunately, you can only cut it off once. Now that I am on guard, you can't cut off the immortal vine with ordinary moves. The surrounding vines had already covered more than 80% of the space. Lu Chen had nowhere to retreat. The worst thing was that until now, he could not find where the woman's real body was. Lu Chen forced himself to calm down. She said that she was everything here, and everything here was her. Perhaps this was why he could not kill her. That was because one attack could only kill a single vine. In addition, this woman had a large number of high-level cultivation techniques and knew the rapid shadow spear and reverse soul roaming dragon like the back of her hand. She targeted him everywhere, leaving him almost no chance to counterattack. In the current situation, the only way to defeat the great Mongol tree was to use the Heaven's Fury spear, but he could not use it at all. Hundreds of thick immortal vines had already forced Lu Chen into a desperate situation. One by one, the immortal vines finally broke through Lu Chen's defense and wrapped around Lu Chen's body. Lu Chen could clearly feel the spiritual energy in his body being torn apart by these immortal vines. They were like hungry tigers that were fighting for Lu Chen's spiritual energy. In an instant, the spiritual energy in Lu Chen's body became abnormally restless and difficult to control. It's over. This thought flashed through Lu Chen's mind. He had actually lost to the great Mongol tree. The immortal vines tugged at Lu Chen's body. At this moment, the woman appeared again. She stood before Lu Chen. The immortal vine also calmed down. However, even though it stopped pulling at Lu Chen's body, it didn't stop fighting for Lu Chen's spiritual energy. At this moment, the spiritual energy in Lu Chen's body was in chaos and he couldn't break free at all. The woman was so close to him, but he couldn't move at all. The woman gently caressed Lu Chen's face, leaned over, and said softly, "Little cutie, it's a pity that you lost. In fact, from the beginning, you couldn't escape from my palm. It's impossible for you to win against me. You didn't even have the slightest chance." As she spoke, the woman directly snatched the spear from Lu Chen's hand and threw it to the side. "Don't worry, I won't let you feel any pain. You will soon become my new nourishment, and we will never be separated again." Lu Chen's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He could not move his head at all and could only look at the god-slaying spear on the ground. Even his weapon had been thrown away like this. This was something that Lu Chen had never experienced before. From the beginning of the game, the ending was already decided. "Just like what you are doing now." After the woman finished speaking, she retreated into the vines and disappeared. The immortal vine around Lu Chen straightened him and he sat upright on the ground. Just like when Lu Chen was comprehending the skill and sat upright on the futon, ending the final battle with the beginning of the game, the woman had already controlled Lu Chen in the palm of her hand. In the spectator stands, the crowd had already seen that Lu Chen was tightly wrapped by the immortal vine, only revealing his face. That kid is indeed very strong. Unfortunately, no one can win against the primordial Mongol tree. The disparity in strength between the two sides is too great. I didn't expect that the trial area was really a living thing. This was only a rumor in the past, but today, it has finally been proven. Actually, you guys haven't been here long enough. This rumor has been around for 800 years. Last time, someone reached the 9th level. Unfortunately, the result was the same as this kid. Therefore, in the future, you can only reach the 8th level at most. The 9th level is an undefeatable existence. Lu Chen felt that the spiritual energy in his body was being crazily absorbed. He closed his eyes and tried to control the circulation of his spirit core to reduce the loss of spiritual energy as much as possible. Still not willing to give up. The woman's voice sounded in his ear, "But, your meaningless struggle won't change anything." The woman didn't lie to Lu Chen. A moment later, Lu Chen lost control of his spirit core. A large amount of spiritual energy rushed out like an army of thousands of men and horses. It was completely out of control and crazily rushed out. Am I really going to die? Lu Chen had this thought for the second time. But, if I die, then there will be no more hope for Earth. All the efforts of Li Shang and the others would become meaningless. Lu Yi was still living on Earth, Xiaoyi was still living on Earth, Li Muhua, Lang Noa, Kuang Lang and the others were still living on Earth. Father was still suffering endless torture in the heaven-penetrating prison, and there was still no news of Mother. It was ridiculous. Some people died, but he couldn't die. There were still too many people who needed his protection and too many things for him to do. Suddenly, Lu Chen frowned. At this moment, spiritual energy was crazily escaping from his body. It was completely out of control, and this feeling was familiar. Wasn't this very similar to the situation when the Heaven's Wrath Spear was used? It was just that every time this happened, Lu Chen always wanted to control this crazy spiritual energy. In a situation where he couldn't control it, it would eventually lead to the failure of the skill. But, what if he didn't control it? Let the spiritual energy go crazy, angry, collide, and roar. Was the profound meaning of the Heaven's Wrath Spear in not controlling it? The woman's voice sounded in his ear again, "Little cutie, how much spiritual energy do you have to be able to hold on for so long? Fine, I'll just treat it as a good meal." But at this moment, Lu Chen, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly opened his mouth. "What is the special reward you mentioned? You still have the mood to talk to me about this? Special reward? If you pass the 9-story pagoda, you will have my approval. I can give you a set of cultivation techniques. I believe you will be very interested. 9 transformations of the celestial demon." Lu Chen said, "In these thousands of years, you might know about the 9 transformations of the celestial demon." The woman chuckled, "You are not too stupid. Do you really want it? Unfortunately, you are now like this. Obviously, you won't have the chance to get this reward." At this moment, someone suddenly exclaimed from below the stage. "Look, isn't that spear, isn't it moving?" Everyone hurriedly looked at the void god-destroying spear that was thrown on the ground. At this moment, the spear body trembled slightly. A moment later, the spear body stood upright on its own and shot rapidly towards Lu Chen's right hand. The woman was also quite surprised. Artifacts had artifact spirits, and it was normal for them to be summoned by their masters. However, Lu Chen's spiritual energy was already in chaos. How could he still summon his own weapon? At this moment, the person who was entangled by the divine vine opened his eyes. He said coldly, 9 transformations of the celestial demon, I want it. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.